Looking at Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina appointing a new Prime Minister, and Malawi cabinet takes an oath today. Those stories and more coming up. Peter sounding more like a voiceover artist thereafter. Your voice has become stronger after the flu, but you well recovered, I can hear.
No, I'm feeling better, and I'm looking forward to another weekend of rest.
Yeah.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling awesome and loving the warmer weather. We had a bit of rain in Joburg, but now I think it's stopped a bit.
It's trying to work out whether it's summer or still winter. Anyway, the sun is out. Amen.
Let's get our news. Here's Onele Nsinzi with that, and then following her is Musibudi Makura with sports headlines.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Completely agree with you, Asanda. Thank you. Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina says he plans to hold a national dialogue with various groups today. This after youth protesters issued a 48-hour ultimatum for him to agree to their demands or face a national strike. On Monday, Rajoelina named Army General Rufin Fortunate Zafisambo as the new Prime Minister. This is a week after he fired his cabinet in a move intended to address some of the grievances that sparked the demonstrations on September 25. But the reshuffle has failed to appease the protesters who initially took to the streets over water and electricity shortages in the impoverished African nation. The South African activists who were abducted in international waters while on their way to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza are expected to arrive back in the country this morning. International Relations Department confirmed the safe arrival of flotilla activists in Jordan yesterday. Meanwhile, the daughter of South Africa's President Nelson Mandela, Makaziwe Mandela, says the family is relieved that the Israeli forces have released flotilla activists. They include Madeba's grandson Mandla Mandela. Makaziwe Mandela spoke to the SABC News. Okay, we do apologize for that low sound play right there. The ad hoc committee in South Africa's parliament probing the allegations made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, will continue today as it is open to the public. Yesterday morning, the committee first took a break of an hour and then went into a closed meeting to discuss the facts that a supplementary statement would be submitted to the committee and not a statement that was different to the one deposed to the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The committee was established to assess the wide-ranging allegations of criminal infiltrations, corruption, political interference within the criminal justice system made by Mkhwanazi. Mkhwanazi is the committee's first witness today, and tomorrow, Lekhanyane apologized to members of the media for closing the meeting without prior notice.
Members of Parliament, members of this committee, regarding the statement that was presented before this committee and before yourselves. Its quality had to be enhanced to meet the standard that the committee has set.
And lastly, Tanzanian police forces say it is investigating reports that the former ambassador turned government critic Humphrey Pole Pole has been kidnapped. Just after his family said he was forcefully taken from his house. Several critics of the government of President Samia Suluhu Hassan, who will stand for re-election on the 29th of October, have disappeared since last year, with opposition parties alleging a campaign of abductions. Pole Pole, who resigned as ambassador to Cuba in July and has repeatedly and harshly criticized Tanzania's ruling party in the months since, went missing from his home in the commercial capital, Dar es Salaam, on Monday. The government rejected allegations by Human Rights Watch that it was cracking down on its critics ahead of the elections and called accounts of abduction a major source of concern for the government. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Novak Djokovic battles through injury to reach the last 8 at the Shanghai Masters, while Conor McGregor is given an 18-month ban for missing a drug test. I'll give you details of these and other stories at 6:30.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Time now for the Africa Roundup on Rise and Shine. This is the section of the show that we bring you up to speed with news making headlines in and around our continent, as well as throw forward to what we can expect to develop in the space of news in this new day. This compiled by our team of researchers, our reporters, as well as our editors. And today we start to look at Madagascar, where the president there, Andry Rajoelina, has named Army General Rufin Fortunat Safisambo as a prime minister a week after dissolving the government in response to ongoing protests over power and water outages.
Safisambo replaces Christian Nase, who was dismissed by the president. Rajoelina said the country needed a, quote, prime minister capable of restoring order and the people's trust. He added that Safisambo's top priority would be to restore the supply of electricity and water. Some protesters are now demanding that the president himself resign. Inspired by similar Gen Z marches in Kenya and Nepal, the protests are the largest wave of unrest in recent years, voicing their dissatisfaction with rampant poverty and high-level corruption. A spokesperson for Rajoelina's office told Reuters over the weekend that the protest movement was being exploited by political actors who are seeking to destabilize the country.
Rising Nile waters inundated homes and fields in northern Egypt over the weekend, forcing residents to move by boat and intensifying a war of words between Cairo and Addis Ababa over whether Ethiopia's giant Nile Dam has worsened seasonal floods. David Dorr picks up the story for us.
Fisherman Saeed Gamil says he's lost everything after rising Nile waters inundated homes and fields in northern Egypt. It's flooding that's forced him to move around by boat. In his Nile Delta village, Gamil said people have been forced to sleep on their roofs, but were now moving because their buildings had started sinking into the water.
The water level is extremely high, much higher this year. Before, it would rise for 2 days and then recede. Now it has been high for a long time, and it's not like before.
The Nile has long been affected by seasonal flooding due to monsoon rainfall in the Ethiopian highlands that usually peaks in July and August. But this year, a late season surge has pushed north from Ethiopia, through Sudan and into Egypt.
Mogadishu is grappling with a wave of forced evictions that has left hundreds of families homeless as government-led demolitions sweep through districts like Hodan and Dainau. Alice Rizzo reports.
Mandeg Mohammed is now sheltering in an IDP camp on the outskirts of the city.
We were ordered to pay $15,000 or $20,000 so that the land is legalized for us, but could not afford it. So evacuation was inevitable. The bulldozer came while we were in the house. We just left.
In the same camp, Karfan Mohammed said officials had told them the land belonged to the government. She says they had to run away when the bulldozers began demolishing their home and that their belongings were left behind. The government says it is legitimately reclaiming public land for development, but in Dainau, one of the affected districts, some residents displayed ownership documents they say were issued by previous administrations.
US President Donald Trump's administration has sent another third country deportation flight to the small African nation of Eswatini this week. Now, this is the second in recent months, despite objections from lawyers for the migrants.
Eswatini's government confirmed the arrival of the third-party country deportees, adding to an initial group of 5 people it received in July. White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson said those deported had been convicted of heinous crimes, including murder and rape. Neither government has provided the nationalities of the deportees. The first 5 reported earlier this year were from Vietnam, Jamaica, Laos, Cuba and Yemen. President Donald Trump aims to deport millions of immigrants in the US illegally. His administration has sought to ramp up removals to third countries as part of that crackdown. Eswatini has not disclosed the terms of its deal with the US and is facing a lawsuit from local activists who claim it was illegal. Legal and human rights activists have also protested the treatment of the deportees, the first group of whom were held in solitary confinement. The Eswatini Department of Correctional Services said in a statement that it remains committed to the humane treatment of all persons in its custody.
Organizers of a comedy festival in the Democratic Republic of Congo are hoping laughter can be therapeutic for many people who've witnessed violence as M23 rebels fought government forces over the last few years. Caroline Malone has more.
At the festival, comedians use dark humour to entertain the crowds, including about former President Joseph Kabila, who has been found guilty of war crimes for backing M23, which he denies. Organiser Christian Kabwe knows that people are suffering and wants to provide some relief.
We organised this event first to relieve stress for the population and second, as the French say, after it's therapeutic. So we wanted to offer this mass therapy, not for one or two people, but for everyone who attends this activity.
And that's how we come to the end of this Wednesday, the 8th of October's edition of the Africa Roundup. We'll do this, of course, again tomorrow. It comes after the 6 a.m. news on Rise and Shine. And coming up, we'll be delving into some of these stories in a deeper context with our resident analyst. And we focus on the West African region. And that's Dr. Matsanga, who will be in conversation with our colleague Peter Ndoro. At Channel Africa 1 is where you can connect with us via our socials.
Zilipendwa na Abedi Jean de la Croix.
Leo tujadili kuhusu chipukizi wanaoimba nyimbo za wasanii wengine. Unadhani hili linatokana na nini, Omari?
Nadhani kwamba tukizama muziki ya sasa hasa wasanii ambao ni chipukizi, kwa kweli kwamba yani karibu kutoka muziki wao wenyewe, lakini wanakuwa wanataka kubiria muziki ya zamani za muziki ya wengine ambao ni taimbo.
Wengine wanadai kufanya hivyo ni kupromote vipaji vyao haraka ili waweze kujulikana. Je, yawezekana kukawa na ukweli wowote au ndio kukosa kabisa kipaji cha kuandika mistari?
Ndio, unaona kwamba msanii anapoazimia kwamba kuchukua wimbo mwingine wa msanii mwingine na kurudia yani mara mbili sivyo, haionyeshi kwamba yani ndio anaanza kazi ya muziki aizalini, lakini ukiangalia kabisa asilimia kubwa utakuta kwamba wanakosa ile mawazo ya kutunga muziki.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Amachita are through to the knockout round of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Be with us this Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. as South Africa's Under-20s face Colombia, streaming live on SABC+. And there's more. Other Under-20 World Cup matches are streaming live on SABC+, with selected fixtures on SABC Sport Channel and SABC 1. Wave the flag, Mzansi. Stand up for Amachita. FIFA Under-20 World Cup Amachita coverage on SABC+, powered by SABC Sport.
From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
It's Wednesday, and every Wednesday morning at this time, we take a look at some of the key developments that have been taking place across West Africa, and always to help us make sense of the political, economic, and security shifts in the region. We're joined by Dr. David Matsanga, who's a political scientist, conflict resolution specialist, and observer of African dynamics, and he does it so well. A very good morning to you, Dr. Matsanga. All right, let's begin, Dr. Matsanga, with Togo, which is launching a strategic review of its engagement with the African Continental Free Trade Area, aiming to deepen trade benefits. What are the major constraints, do you think, that have held back the full exploitation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement so far? It's been talked about, praised, but really not in fourth gear yet. All right, it looks like we've got a challenge hearing Dr. Matsanga. We're going to try and connect with him in a few moments' time. But just to let you know that significant things have been happening in history today. 2004, that's 21 years ago, Wangari Maathai won the Nobel Peace Prize. The Kenyan environmentalist and human rights activist was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, and she became the first African woman to win the award, recognized for her work promoting sustainable development, democracy and peace through the Green Belt movement, which planted millions of trees across Africa.
Thunberg.
Do you know,
what is she up to these days?
I think she passed away, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, I just wonder why it took so long, actually, because if you think about what African women have been doing for centuries, for it to take that long, 2004, Nobel Prize, I think, came out 60s even. I'm surprised it took that long to get a black woman recognized, honestly. I mean, black women, you guys do so much.
Yeah, we do. Oh, yeah, she died in September of 2011. That was a while back ago.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll always remember her.
No, she was quite a woman, I tell you, a woman of substance, that's for sure. And in 1993, on this day, the United Nations lifted sanctions against South Africa. So that was already a significant march towards the democracy that the country eventually started to experience from 1994. So 1993, a lot of things were happening. And I think the Cricket World Cup, South Africa was allowed to compete for the first time. And that was after the referendum. You must have been a baby at that stage, 93. I don't think you'd remember the referendum.
I do.
Do you remember it?
I remember.
My goodness, yeah, it was a big thing.
I was more than a baby. I was oldish. I was in primary school.
Okay, so
I remember. Yeah.
Wow. No, it was a thing. Because I
You're
remember.
trying to get me to reveal my age.
I remember.
International radio.
From the whole country, there was
Yeah.
only one city that voted no to declare continuing talks with the ANC. And that was Petersburg, now known as Polokwane.
Right.
Everyone else voted yes, but I think they voted to go to the Cricket World Cup.
Yeah, I was 10 years old, so I remember. I remember quite clearly.
Okay, so now you've told everyone.
Yeah. Thanks for getting me there.
Okay, all right, we're going to take a quick break. We're struggling to get Dr. Matsanga today, but let's see if we can't get him in during the break.
Zilipendwa na Abedi Jean de la Croix.
Leo tujadili kuhusu chipukizi wanaoimba nyimbo za wasanii wengine. Unadhani hili linatokana na nini, Omari?
Nadhani kweli kwamba tukizama muziki ya sasa, hasa wasanii ambao ni chipukizi, kwa kweli kwamba yani karibu kutoka muziki wao wenyewe, lakini wanakuwa wanataka kuhubiria muziki ya zamani za muziki wengine ambao imetaimba.
Wengine wanadai kufanya hivyo ni kupromote vipaji vyao haraka ili waweze kujulikana. Je, yawezekana kukawa na ukweli wowote au ndio kukosa kabisa kipaji cha kuandika mistari?
Ndio, unaona kwamba msanii anapoazimia kwamba kuchukua wimbo mwingine wa msanii mwingine na kurudia yani mara mbili studio, haionyeshi kwamba yani ndio wanaanza kazi ya muziki aizani, lakini ukiangalia kabisa asilimia kubwa utakuta kwamba wanakosa ile mawazo ya kutunga muziki.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
The 14th Oppenheimer Research Conference is fast approaching. Convened by the Oppenheimer Generation Research and Conservation, it's one of Africa's leading platforms for natural and environmental science, enabling young researchers to mix with experienced trailblazers to help translate their research into real-world solutions. From the 15th to the 17th of October, attendees will discuss topics ranging from land management, biodiversity, to wildlife economies. Channel Africa will broadcast live, spotlighting some of the African voices, shaping meaningful approaches to some of Africa's most pressing challenges. Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Right, I hope we've got Dr. Matsanga on the line now. Dr. Matsanga, very good morning to you. Can you hear me? Dr.
Good morning, Peter. Good morning, everybody across the continent of Africa.
Fantastic. So good to hear your voice. So, just before, we were trying to talk about Togo, which is launching a strategic review, it calls, of its engagement with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And I'm just wondering, this process has been in play for quite a while now. Why hasn't it gone into fourth gear yet?
First of all, Africa is faced with obstacles of many white elephant projects. Continental free trade was supposed to activate trade across Africa, and review mechanisms were put there by Dr. Dlamini Zuma, who was by then the Secretary General of the chairperson of African Union. A very good move, a very good person who works very hard for the Union to make progress and to be seen as an Africa. But most of these things are just on paper, Peter. Most of these things are on paper. They have put, you find countries waking up, signing stuff, conferences, calls, COMESA, IGAD, ECOWAS. They all call these conferences. AU itself. But implementation has been the problem for African countries. So I think this is another one that is always waking up to make sure that citizens don't make noise. Citizens think that something is happening. Yes, there is nothing going to happen to be fruitful for the future.
Let's go to Senegal now. A judicial inquiry is underway there into the deaths of, I think it was around 65 people during demonstrations in 2021 and early 2024. And I suppose this inquiry may end up having challenges in terms of making sure some people are brought to account, given that Senegal's parliament entered into a amnesty law, passed an amnesty law. The victims of these deaths probably will feel hard done by. Or is there going to be something that does come out of this inquiry that might bring some comfort?
I think I'm told I'm one of the few people who condemned the violence that marked President Macky Sall's last hours in office. I'm one of the few people who went on international television stations, your own station, this station, and called on Macky Sall to release because some of the things that Macky Sall was doing were very, very, very bad things. So if there is any commission of inquiry, it must lead to reconciliation. Any commission of inquiry that raises the ghost of the past and it does not heal anything in Africa that does not use a redemption strategy, similar to that of Desmond Tutu, similar to that of Colombia, similar to that of Northern Ireland, is just a waste of time. You must calm down, sit down, allow people to bend, to say, I am sorry. Similar to that of Rwanda, the Charter Court. All these commissions of inquiry that they are setting up and haphazardly packing up packages, useless, they will again create problems. But if they are doing it on the levels of on the way that a redemption strategy that will heal and make people live together, bring new cohesion, bring new unity of purpose in Senegal, I have no problem. I had a talk with them. They had themselves who were quarreling, and now they have come back. Some of us do a lot of silent diplomacy on this continent of Africa, Peter. That's a good move they have made.
Ghana is coming under growing scrutiny of its agreement with the US in terms of receiving deportees, including reports of illegal detention conditions. Eswatini is also same focus. What's your take on this issue of deportees from the US ending up in Ghana and other African nations?
I was in Ghana a few weeks ago. I have notified the officials of the Ghanaian government that I have petitioned for an opinion in International Court of Justice. An opinion, any group, any international Pan-African Forum Limited and others. We have written for an opinion from the court to see, to tell us as to whether the United States of America is doing the right thing of forcefully sending people, some of them hardcore criminals from other countries that were imprisoned there on drugs, on money trafficking, on cocaine, on everything. All these hardcore criminals that were sentenced by the courts in the U.S. to be forcefully handed over to countries, and even handing people forcefully is a crime against humanity internationally. It violates the international law. So as to whether the United States of America is doing anything, but one of the problems that African countries have, they don't listen to their own African professors and the doctors whom they have spent money educating. They would like to see opinions from other British, American, European, Australian, and other agencies, notifying them, then they can take the matter seriously. I've done an opinion poll, and I'm waiting, and we have discussed this matter. This is going to create chaos in the most African countries when you dump criminals. These criminals also grow within the community, and our children are watching when someone walks in your village who has been sentenced from drug dealing and walks into South Africa, disappears in the ghettos from Swaziland, and disappears, walks and starts another cocaine industry there. Our communities will be at risk.
Nigeria is planning to triple capital gains tax on foreign equity investors. What are your thoughts on this? I wonder if it's not going to affect foreign direct investment, or might it mobilize domestic revenue generation?
Peter, I have told you time and time again, until Nigeria rearranges itself, whatever it does is useless. It will not even benefit the citizens of Nigeria. Whether you get gains tax, increase investment tax, increase investors, corruption has eaten the society in Nigeria. Mismanagement, governance, violence has eaten Nigeria. There is no climate that can give you gains tax if you are fighting, kidnapping the same people that are supposed to be working with you. Peter, this case, I think you better preserve to case one of these days. If you are not busy, travel into Nigeria and sit on the street. Those good hotels where I used to sit with you in the Lagos Intercontinental Hotel, they are gone. People tell you more about corruption than development of state payment tax, investment tax. People are crying there. People are crying for help. And time has come for Nigeria to accept that there is need for external interest. There is need for somebody to come. If you cannot come to tell them what is going on there, I don't think it will be will change any civilian at all. Nigeria needs the rearrangement. It needs to be rearranged. How to look to make the rearrangement, it is up to Nigerians. But for us, we have said it, and we shall continue to say that there is nothing like a state there, but only a collapsed system of corrupt people. They eat the whole money and don't use institutions
I think your view has been pretty consistent about Nigeria over time. Dr. Matsanga, sadly, we've run out of time. Always great talking to you. Thank you. Your insights, always appreciated. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Peter Ndoro. Today, we are here in East Africa with COMESA, 21 countries, including South Africa. Thank you very much. COMESA is one unit. One of the things that they must do is to remove worker permits for Africans who are in COMESA. You can't go to bank money, 50,000, and then you carry it in your mattress. No. Worker permits in all these COMESA countries to be removed. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you so much. That's Dr. David Matsanga, political scientist and conflict resolution analyst, giving us his take on West African affairs. It's time for your news headlines. Good morning, Onelin Sinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Good morning, Peter. Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina says he plans to hold a national dialogue with various groups today. This after youth protesters issued a 48-hour ultimatum for him to agree to their demands or face a national strike. Members of Parliament's ad hoc committee in South Africa, established to investigate allegations of national security, will today interrogate KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. The committee is investigating allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the criminal justice system made by Mkhwanazi in July. And a military airstrike on a Buddhist religious festival in Myanmar is reported to have left more than 30 people dead. Eyewitnesses say two motorist paragliders dropped bombs on a peaceful candlelight protest being held during the festival. Channel Africa News, I'm Oneli Tsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's find out what's happening in the world of sports. Here's Musibuji Makura with our first full bulletin.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. We'll start here. So while Morocco have already booked their ticket to the FIFA World Cup tournament in Group E, Tanzania as well as Zambia will hope to bow out of their qualifying campaign on a high, beginning with their clash at the Amani Stadium tonight at 9 p.m. Central African time. So both Tanzania as well as Zambia are unable now to qualify for the global showpiece, given their standings in Group E. The Taifa Stars are currently second in their group on 11 points behind Morocco. Now, Zambia, on the other hand, are in fourth position in Group E and have accumulated just 6 points from 6 matches played so far in this campaign. Onto this now, the deputy chairperson of the prestigious FIFA Men's National Teams Competitions Committee, Amaju Pinnick, has extended his congratulations to the president of the Nigerian Football Federation, Ibrahim Musa Gusau, the legal eye of the organization, that is Abdullah Mustafa, as well as a seasoned football executive, Ashiat Falude, on their appointments into key FIFA standing committees in a landmark development that further solidifies Nigeria's growing influence in global football governance. These appointments place Nigerian expertise at the heart of FIFA's decision-making structure. Now, these roles, alongside Pinnick's own continued service, do reaffirm the country's contribution to the sport's leadership at the highest level. On to cricket news now. While South Africa's national women's cricket team relishes in the Women's World Cup win over New Zealand on Tuesday, the South African main team is gearing up to start the defence of its World Test Championship title. The Proteas will play 2 test matches against Pakistan starting in Lahore this coming Sunday. The Proteas have spent the last few days at the High Performance Centre in Pretoria and the country's capital city, fine-tuning their plans ahead of a tour to Pakistan. So the stand-in captain Aiden Markram expects spin to be one of the major factors of this tour of Pakistan.
They've managed to get the wickets to turn quite a bit. There's a couple nets where it's really exaggerated. you almost rather would have it on that side and get to that side in Pakistan and it maybe feel a bit easier. But it's been a good couple of days, obviously still with the afternoon session now as well, but expecting the spin side of things big time. Naturally a lot lower there from a seam point of view, a lot more skiddy. So it's quite hard to emulate here that in South Africa, but we're trying to put a bit of emphasis on that and find ways of training that as well.
Onto this now, undefeated mixed martial artist Justin Clark says he's ready to topple Maxwell Nana in the semi-finals of the PFL Africa Heavyweight Tournament set for the 18th of October. Now, the PFL will stage the fight night in Kigali, Rwanda for the very first time, and Clark is now eager to make an impact on foreign soil after his first TKO triumph over Joshua Tisha in Cape Town back in July of this year. So the winner of this upcoming bout will book their place in the heavyweight final in Benin on the 20th of December this year, and Clark is embracing the challenge that lies ahead.
I'm excited to see a new city. I've heard a lot from people saying Kigali is actually quite amazing. Obviously, you do have that feeling where it's might be a little bit lonely because you don't have any family there to back you. That's fine. I've fought in foreign soil before. But with regards to Maxwell Nana, I see he likes striking, but he comes from a Sambo background. Now in Sambo, you're allowed to wrestle and take down and stuff. And from just watching some of his fights, say he likes to strike, but he'll reserve his takedowns for when it's necessary. So I do see it being a stand-up fight first and foremost.
So the winner of the PFL Africa tournament will be invited to compete in the global PFL tournament at some point in 2026, and Clark is now poised to further amplify the global ascent of South Africa MMA.
There have been a lot of fighters before Drickus, but I believe Drickus was the that last fighter that basically really brought the spotlight to South Africa, or Africa, and just showcase, say, listen, we can, from our small little countries, produce champions. And we've got the grit and stuff. Oftentimes it's just the knowledge of trainers and stuff like that hold people back. But the perseverance, the grit, the work ethic, it's all here. The athleticism, it's here. And he did shed a light on that. And I obviously even thought the UFC might come to African soil first.
Right, so that's it right from the sports desk at the SAWA. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, remember to send us an email. That's to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Yo, listen up. Channel Africa is taking the digital game higher. Check it out. We are taking our digital plums to the next level. For you, our loyal listeners. You know where we at, right? New website, a fresh new app, and they're on fire. Anytime, anywhere listening, Channel Africa brings the African sound to you.
It's the bomb, yo.
Stay locked. The future is crystal clear with us. Your new way to experience Channel Africa is almost here. Africa, stand tall and get ready.
Right, it's time to find out what's happening in the world of business as we say good morning to Tabiso Lihuko. Chanduko Ligege. Sorry, Chanduko, good morning to you.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter, and good morning. The G20 nations acknowledge the vital role of energy efficiency in driving sustainable growth and meeting Paris Agreement targets, as well as prioritizing enhanced energy productivity and increased investment in energy-efficient solutions. This will be part of the discussions of the G20 Energy Transition Working Group at Zimbali, north of Durban, South Africa, this week. Deputy Minister for Electricity and Energy, Samantha Graham-Murray, says in Africa there are over 500 million people who do not have access to any form of energy. Speaking at a conference on the sidelines of the working group meeting, Graham Murray says it is very concerning that a large number of women and children die because of unclean cooking methods.
You've got over 1 billion Africans who use unclean cooking facilities to make their food. Clean cooking is also one of our G20 priorities, and it's something that we are focusing strongly on, not just in South Africa, but throughout Africa. Access to energy is also something that we are focusing on. But what we're saying is that if we can create an energy efficient mindset, we don't have to create as much energy. So we're talking about saving by 2063 about 40 gigawatts of electricity that won't have to be produced if we start using energy more efficiently.
South Africa's Road Accident Fund says some of the claims lodged by road accident victims expire due to the lapse of time required to processing them. RAF revealed this yesterday on the first day of the inquiry conducted by the Standing Committee on Public Accounts into the entity's financial affairs, among others. Acting CFO Tshepo Moesi says the prescribed time for processing claims is one of the challenges the entity is grappling with when it comes to paying road accident victims.
So the process of finalizing a claim requires that that's why in direct claimants, then the RAF would appoint those kind of people on behalf of a direct claimant. But when somebody has opted to go for a law firm, then the law firm would then take them through those assessments. And once those kind of documents are submitted to the RAF, it's then the RAF can make an assessment of the claim. But of course, RAF also has a right to appoint their own experts.
South Africa's Department of Transport says it has been well resolved to make legislative amendments to expedite payments of road accident funds. Deputy Minister on Transport Mkhuleko Hlengwa says they have found that the bulk of the claims are not given swift priority.
The claimant must take priority and the ease of access. Amongst the issues that we have looked at is the prioritization of the payment of claims. And therefore, I would say, I know Scopa says follow the money. I would say here follow the claimant to be able to get to the challenges that they have. And
now in East Africa, Kenya's Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee has cut its benchmark lending rate to 9.25% from 9.50%. In a statement, the committee says it therefore concluded that there was scope for a further easing of the monetary policy stance by reducing the central bank rate by 25 basis points. This will augment the previous policy actions aimed at stimulating lending by banks to the private sector and supporting economic activity while ensuring inflationary expectations remain firmly anchored and the exchange rate remains stable. It is the 8th meeting in a row that the Central Bank of Kenya has cut its main lending rate. Meanwhile, Kenya has completed converting a $5 billion railway loan from China from dollars into the yuan currency in order to save on interest payments. The country's finance minister, John Mbadi, says the conversion, which allows the higher dollar-based interest rates on the two tranche of the loan to drop into their lower yuan-based counterpart, will save the country about $215 million a year. Apart from the financial relief, officials attribute the move to switch the currency of the loan to the fact that the East African nation's debt is concentrated in dollars, exposing the government to higher currency and interest rate risks. Let's have a look at financial indicators at this hour. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,467 naira. In Botswana, 13 pula 20. Kenya, the dollar is 128 shilling 23. In Zambia, 23 kwacha 73. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 32. Russia, 82 rubles 25. India, 88 rupee 73. China, 7 yuan 11. South Africa, 17 rand 19 cents. $1 is 74 pence to the British pound, 85 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $4,010, platinum at $1,656 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $65.95 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email, newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa.
Our G20 fact for this morning: at the G20 summits, seating is arranged alphabetically, but in the host country's language. This means each host can unintentionally or cleverly change who sits where. When Japan hosted, Japan came last, placing Prime Minister Abe far from the center, while in Argentina, Argentina came first, giving President Macri the prime spot next to major world leaders. And that's our G20 fact for this morning.
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability.
The Hospital Association of South Africa is hosting a 2-day conference in Johannesburg, and this year's conference takes place under the theme Sustainable Healthcare Together. The meeting is attended by several international and South African experts in healthcare. An exhibition is also running simultaneously, showcasing the latest developments in innovation in the healthcare industry. Channel Africa news reporter Tuto Ngobeni spoke to the Chief Executive Officer at HASA, Dr. Dumisani Bomela, about the conference.
So this is an annual event that we stage. We've been doing it for quite a while now, for upwards of 20 years. And it's really got a significant role in our health calendar, in the sense that it's the biggest by feedback from our audiences in the past and best hospital conference in Africa. So we took this opportunity again, thanks to our wonderful team that has put the event together, to bring all the role players, significant stakeholders in healthcare. We've got funders, we've got service providers, we've got academics, policymakers, legislators, and it happens at a critical time in our history, healthcare history in South Africa, when there is a lot of debate about our future healthcare system, and a lot of people have got this awareness that what must our health system look like in the future. And so we therefore think it's an opportune platform. And if you look at the themes, they speak to that. We've got a whole period where we're discussing on the leadership theme. We need leadership more than anything else at this juncture in our healthcare system, as South African society and other aspects of our lives as well. There is innovation and there is quality of healthcare.
Now, in terms of this conference, does it include the private sector? Is it public and private sector? And speak to us about the significance of public and private sector partnership, especially in terms of the country's healthcare system.
It's an inclusive conference. It's a gathering that reflects exactly what we think is needed for our country. The minds from the public side of healthcare and the private side of healthcare coming together, because we look at healthcare as, even though we may be private hospitals that are staging the conference, but we look at healthcare systematically as a collaborative effort that is going to deliver to the entire population, and that is our vision.
That was Dr. Dumisani Bomela, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Hospital Association of South Africa, speaking to Channel Africa's Tuto Ngobeni.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
As Africa looks to reliable and more sustainable sources of energy for the future, the 5th Annual African Energy Week recently wrapped up in Cape Town, South Africa. One of the discussions at Africa's largest gathering of energy leaders, investors and innovators was finding solutions to high energy bills. One such solution is efficient water heating that replaces traditional forms of water heating with heat pump technology. To discuss this energy technology, we're now joined by Roger Fawcett, who's founder and CEO of Mr. Heat Pump, an energy company based in Johannesburg, South Africa. Roger, good morning to you and thank you for making time.
No problem. Morning, Asanda.
So how reliable and energy efficient are current solutions for water heating offered by traditional methods if we look at South Africa and maybe the region as well?
You know, most residents in South Africa are using the old electric element geysers, which use a lot of power. And they use 65% of the monthly Eskom bill is water heating geysers. So we connect our heat pumps to those electric element geysers. We switch off the element when we connect the heat pump, and the heat pump then saves 70% monthly of that Eskom bill because it's very efficient in its water heating.
Talk to us about the kind of solutions that heat pumps offer in tackling this issue and how much energy they save. You say they save 70% in terms of the bill. Is it only monetary contributions?
Yeah, look, it's 70% saving of the bill. And for example, if the bill's 10,000 Rand a month, we will cut that bill in half to 5,000 Rand a month. So it's a massive saving monthly, especially for the bigger homes and for businesses, you know, places like hospitals, hotels, you know, all the bigger users of power. Heat pumps can do a massive saving for those bills.
Explain to us how this technology works. What advanced controls do they provide?
They've all got control keypads. So you set your temperature on the control keypad, for example, 55 degrees C, and that then the heat pump operates according to what temperature has been set on the control keypad. I'm not going to go into big technical jargon now about how a heat pump works, but just to give you a brief description, it uses very little power. So 1 kilowatt of power for an average heat pump on a domestic home instead of the 4 kilowatt of the electric element. So you can see already 4 kilowatt versus 1, so it's a ratio of 1 to 4. So 1 kilowatt of power, it's 70% saving.
How much of a reduction on our carbon footprint for the region can they contribute to?
Heat pumps work at zero carbon rating. So we emit zero carbon.
Let's talk about the history and application of heat pumps. When did their adoption become more widespread? For those of us who don't know, you know, that instead of using a geyser, one can use a heat pump.
Yeah, look, you still got to use the geyser as storage for hot water, and then you connect the heat pump to it. But heat pumps have been around since the early 1900s in Western Europe. And then they got their first breakthrough in New York City, the tall skyscrapers in New York City in the 1950s, where they installed a lot of heat pumps in New York City. So heat pumps have been around for over 100 years, the technology. So it's a tried and trusted technology. You know, lots of people have had the benefit of heat pumps in South Africa. We had in 2011, we had the Eskom rebate scheme, which gave a rebate of just approximately 4,000 Rand for anybody purchasing a heat pump. That ran for about a year until they ran out of money.
Does South Africa, currently as it is, have the necessary resources to adopt this option on a national power grid level? And if not, what is needed to grow the resources in order to ensure a greener future?
You know, the future for heat pumps in South Africa is very positive because of our climate. we've got lots of sun. So the sun can warm up the air, the actual air that goes into the inlets of the heat pump, and that helps the heat pump to heat a lot quicker. So I think heat pumps in South Africa have a great future. If anyone wants to take a look at our website, it's www.mrheatpump, that's MR heatpump.co.za, or they can contact me on 083-434-8434, and we will attend to any of their energy savings.
Can they be adopted for both domestic and industrial use, and what devices can they be applied on?
Yeah, we do commercial and domestic homes. We did the building in 2017. People in Joburg would remember the building, Leonardo Apartments in Sandton, Africa's tallest building at that time, 55 stories tall. We did that installation with commercial heat pumps, and the ROI, return on investment, was approximately 14 months. And the millions of rand they'd spent on that installation was all returned to them. So the commercial heat pumps give a fantastic return on investment in a short space of time.
How are they integrated into renewable energy sources like solar or wind power, these heat pumps?
Yeah, heat pumps can be connected to, if there's spare capacity on the inverter, the solar inverter, we can then connect the heat pump direct to the solar inverter, which means that your heat pump is now operating off the inverter and the solar panels operating totally off sun energy and not connected to the grid at all. So it's a fantastic innovation that we can connect to the grid, to the inverter, and that saves you 100%. You're totally off-grid. Your heat pump's now working off-grid.
Roger, thank you so much again for your time here on Channel Africa and educating us on this alternate energy solution.
You're welcome, Yolanda.
Thanks. Roger Fawcett, founder and CEO of Mr. Heat Pump, an energy company based in Johannesburg, South Africa, as Africa and the region looking at the future of energy and the more reliable and sustainable sources of that energy source, or the energy sources that we need.
From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
South Africa's national under-20 men's football team, Amajita, are through to the knockout round of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Be with us this Wednesday at 21:30 Central Africa time as Amajita face Colombia, streaming live on SABC+. And there's more. Other Under-20 World Cup matches are also streaming live on SABC+, with selected fixtures on SABC Sport. Channel and also SABC 1. Wave the flag. Go on, Mzansi. Stand up for Amajita. FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Amajita coverage on SABC Plus, powered by SABC Sport.
7 o'clock Central African time. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of Rise and Shine. If you've just joined us, well, thank you for choosing Channel Africa as your source of news and current affairs from the African perspective. My name is Asanda Beda. At Channel Africa 1 is where you can connect with us. That's our social media platforms across the board. We're on all of them, literally. On the SABC Plus mobile app is where you can also connect, and you can connect with us on www.channelafrica.co.za.
Yeah, indeed. For the next half an hour, we're going to be taking, in fact, the next hour, we'll be taking a look at a number of issues on the channel, and we'll give you more details as that plays out. But first of all, it's time to catch you up with the news as we say good morning once again to Onele Nsinsi, and that'll be followed by the news headlines with Musibudi Makura.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina says he plans to hold a national dialogue with various groups today. This after youth protesters issued a 48-hour ultimatum for him to agree to their demands or face a national strike. On Monday, Rajoelina named Army General Rafin Fortunate Zafisambo as the new prime minister. This is a week after he fired his cabinet in a move intended to address some of the grievances that sparked the demonstrations on September 25. But the reshuffle has failed to appease the protesters who initially took to the streets over water and electricity shortages in the impoverished African nation. Members of Parliament's ad hoc committee in South Africa established to investigate allegations of national security will today interrogate the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. The committee is investigating allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the criminal justice system made by Mkhwanazi in July. Mkhwanazi, the committee's first witness, appeared yesterday and will finalize his appearance today. Yesterday, Mkhwanazi was questioned by Advocate Norman Arendse Senior Counsel, the evidence leader appointed by Parliament. South African activists who were part of the global Sumut flotilla, which was intercepted by Israel, are expected to arrive in the country today. The activists were abducted in international waters while on their way to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. They arrived in Jordan yesterday after a few days in Israeli detention and are expected to land at the OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg this morning. Criselda Lewis reports.
They arrive home at about 9:30 this morning, we understand, from Qatar. It's going to be quite a relief for them and their families as well. You know that there's been widespread criticism and international condemnation of the interception of this global Sumut flotilla, which was on its way to Gaza to deliver humanitarian aid. Of course, you'd know that the humanitarian crisis in that war-stricken country is quite well documented.
The Chadian government has terminated its agreement with the controversial conservation organization that has Prince Harry on its board of directors. In a stern statement, it ended the 15-year mandate of the charity African Parks to manage 2 protected areas. The BBC's Mayeni Jones explains.
Chad's Ministry of Environment said African Parks displayed an arrogant and disrespectful attitude towards the government and repeatedly failed to fully cooperate with the authorities. It also blamed the resurgence of poaching in its natural parks on a lack of investment by the charity. It's the latest scandal to plague the organisation. Earlier this year, it admitted that employees in one of the parks it manages in the Republic of Congo had abused members of the local community. It also refused to publish an independent report into the abuses. African Parks said it had contacted the Environment Ministry to better understand the government's position.
And lastly, a military airstrike on a Buddhist religious festival in Myanmar is reported to have left more than 30 people dead, many of them children. At least 80 others are said to have been injured. White eyewitnesses say 2 motorized paragliders dropped bombs on a peaceful candlelight protest being held during the festival in a town in central Myanmar. Organizers of the event say hundreds had gathered for the virtual late on Monday. Myanmar has been gripped by civil war since the army seized power in 2021. Now, for any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News. I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Tanzania as well as Zimbabwe will play for pride in the World Cup qualifiers, while Conor McGregor is given an 18-month ban for missing a drug test. I'll tell you more details at 7:30.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam. Rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
Now, according to research by Dr. Said Babajide Owonikoko, a researcher at the Center for Peace and Security Studies at the Modibo Adama University of Technology in Nigeria, Boko Haram, once overshadowed by its breakaway faction, the Islamic State West Africa Province, ISWAP, appears to be making a violent comeback in the Lake Chad region. His study highlights recent attacks in Nigeria and Cameroon that signal the group's renewed strength under new leadership and shifting regional dynamic. He joins us now to discuss the reasons behind this resurgence, the implications and possible responses from countries in the region. Dr. Owonikoko, thank you very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me with you. And good morning to our listeners.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about this resurgence of Boko Haram. I mean, I've been following this Boko Haram story for a number of years now, and they seem to come. I don't know whether they get managed or they dissipate and then they come back again. Is this what we're seeing now? Is this wave of they go away, they remobilize, and then they come back?
Thank you for this question. You know, when we talk about Boko Haram, people mistakenly think that we are talking about all the two groups combined together. Boko Haram has a faction that is called ISWAP. Since 2021, ISWAP has been reigning. Most of what we have heard about attacks of terrorists is about ISWAP. But people call them all together Boko Haram. But this one that I'm talking about is what they call JAS, Jamatu Islam. That means a group that is committed to jihad in the name of Allah. And since 2021, when the SY leader of the group died, not much has been said about the group. It went into obscurity. And since 2025, the group has come alive again, trying to carry out a lot of attacks in Nigeria and in Cameroon. As I've said in my recent publication with the conversation, a lot of attacks have been carried out by this group just in 2025 alone. And this indicates the resurgence of the group, after hibernating for about, 4 years. So that is it.
So when you say faction, what does that mean actually? Is it that they are independent but have similar views and perhaps are just more militant in their approach, or are they borrowing the name Boko Haram? Explain that to us.
Okay. What I mean by faction, for people who have been following activities of a terrorist organization in Nigeria, since 2016, Boko Haram broke in, or even to take it further, since 2012, Boko Haram broke into faction. The first faction that broke out of Boko Haram was known as Ansaru, which today is very strong around the northwest and north central region of Nigeria. But in 2016, another faction broke out of Boko Haram that is known as Islamic State of West Africa, which is affiliated to ISIS. The factional break arose from division within the ideology of the group. Boko Haram that was under Shekau before, believe that anybody that is not, their member is a potential target of the group that can be attacked. Either you are a Muslim, either you are a Christian, either you are a pagan, or can be attacked. But those who broke out from the group believe that no, everybody should not be attacked. But people that are Muslims should be separated and should not be attacked. So this disagreement within the ideology was what broke the group into two. So ISWAP broke out and affiliated itself to ISIS. And since that 2016, it has enjoyed a lot of support from ISIS. And most of its attack is on the military, and some, areas or communities that are not Muslim community. And that's why, even from 2015, since 2015, according to a report, ISWAP has carried out a total of about 15, that was as at July, a total of about 15 attacks on military outposts. Even last month, there was a very, severe attack of ISIS on the Nigerian military outpost at Banki. That is a trademark attack of ISWAP. But Boko Haram, which is not affiliated, which is like a mother group for all others, that all those ones broke out from, they believe that everybody can be attacked. Any community, anybody that is not a member of the group is a potential source, of attack for the group. So this is how the general Boko Haram group has transmuted over time to what we now have now.
Just how dangerous is this resurgence in the Lake Chad region? Is this something that the authorities in the region can manage, or are there fears that this could escalate significantly?
I think that this will escalate. Of course, now the power of Lake Chad countries to be able to respond to terrorist activities in the region, I believe, has reduced significantly, because multinational joint task force remain a common front for the four countries to combat the activities of the group. But there has been factions even within, the force itself. Niger has broke away as a result of the disagreements with Nigeria over ECOWAS sanction for the military coup that took place in the country. So it has left the multinational joint task force, I think, since early this year or thereabouts. And even cooperation among the three countries left has not been smooth, even since around 2020 or thereabouts. So the force is very weak now to be able to respond to activities of terrorist group. Then, as I've said previously, even the military forces in the Lake Chad region has received the serious bashing from ISWAP. Like I told you, ISWAP has carried out a total of about more than 15 attacks on military outposts. And this has weakened them. So now that Boko Haram is coming up again, I believe that the threat in the region will be higher. And I don't see how the region is going to respond very well to this. I still don't see. And I believe that there may even be more attacks on military outposts, because as Boko Haram is coming stronger now, they will need more weapons. Remember, as I said, Boko Haram is not affiliated to any major terrorist organization in the world. It exists on its own. So, the resources that they will need, they will want to source it within their own power, which means that they will want to carry out their own attack on military to get more weapons. And I think this is what may happen, to consolidate on its resurgence. And this will mean a very dangerous situation for Lake Chad.
Dr. Onikoko, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your insights on this concerning development in West Africa. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. That's Dr. Onikoko talking to us about the resurgence of a faction of Boko Haram in the Lake Chad region in particular. And it's of a serious concern as the authorities in the region perhaps not fully prepared for what might be on the way.
A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Marking the second anniversary of the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, the United Nations Secretary General has called for the unconditional release of all Israeli hostages and an end to the suffering for all. Antonio Guterres also referred to the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza as being on a scale that defied comprehension. In a statement, he called for hope after 2 years of trauma amid renewed efforts by mediators to bring the conflict to a close. Sherwin Bryce-Peace reports.
Israelis paused in silence as memorial sirens marked the second anniversary of the Hamas attack at various locations across the country. A day in which 1,200 Israelis were killed and 251 hostages kidnapped. 48 remain in captivity, many deceased. While families of hostages released or still in captivity protested near the home of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Zohar Avigdori is a relative of released hostages.
It marks 2 years to our personal catastrophe as well as the national catastrophe that hasn't ended. The war still goes on, and above all, we have 48 hostages who are still waiting to come home to their families and to Israel. And we are today making it very clear, once again, sadly, that this should be the top priority and that they all should return immediately. And as a result of that, also ending the war.
At the United Nations, similar sentiments, amid efforts to not only bring the hostages home, but also to end the devastating consequences of the war in Gaza that has largely destroyed the enclave and hundreds of thousands of lives along with it. The Secretary General's spokesperson, Stefan Dujarric.
The Secretary General said that 2 years ago today, Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups launched an abhorrent, large-scale terror attack on Israel. On this day, he said, let us remember all those who were killed and suffered horrific violence. 2 years later, Mr. Guterres said that hostages remain captive in Gaza in deplorable conditions, adding that he has met with hostage families and survivors who share their unbearable pain with him. He said today, with even greater urgency, release the hostages unconditionally and immediately, end the suffering for all, put an end to the hostilities in Gaza, in Israel, and the region.
The UN chief further encouraged the parties to the conflict to seize the opportunity presented by US President Donald Trump's peace plan to bring the conflict to an end as negotiators meet in Egypt in an effort to agree the parameters that could see all the hostages released. Listen to Qatari Foreign Ministry spokesperson Majed Al-Ansari.
الخطة تتكون من 20 نقطة
The peace plan consists of approximately 20 points. All of these points require practical explanations on the ground, which of course requires communication with all parties. As you know, all parties are present there in Egypt now. In fact, no sentiment, whether optimistic, pessimistic, or otherwise, can be applied to the negotiations. The negotiations are ongoing. We are committed to this plan as it has been prepared. We are committed to reaching an end to this war. Now, it's early to talk about any alternatives to any plan. We're talking about implementing this plan and applying this plan. All parties have agreed to this plan, so there are no obstacles now in terms of agreeing to the 20 points contained in President Trump's plan. The obstacles now are in implementation.
The World Health Organization in recent days reporting that nearly 42,000 life-changing injuries had been caused by the ongoing war in Gaza, in addition to a death toll in excess of 67,000 people, the vast majority civilians. Dr. Rick Pieperkorn is WHO's representative in the occupied Palestinian territory.
Nearly 42,000 people in the Gaza Strip have life-changing injuries caused by the ongoing conflict, according to the WHO estimates released today in the report estimating trauma rehabilitation needs in Gaza. As new injuries mount and health needs rise, the health system teeters on the brink of collapse. Currently, less than 14, I think it's probably 12 or 13 of Gaza's 36 hospitals remain partly functional, while less than 1/3 of the pre-conflict rehabilitation services are operating, with several facing imminent closure.
Various organizations, including Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, Médecins Sans Frontières, and a UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry, among others, has labeled Israeli conduct in Gaza a genocide, while South Africa pursues that legal determination at the International Court of Justice. 2 years into this most recent phase of a generational conflict in the Middle East, the need for a credible process that resolves long-standing issues is more urgent than ever. The need for a permanent two-state solution in which, as the UN Secretary-General reiterated in his statement, Israelis, Palestinians, and all the peoples of the region could live side by side in security, dignity, and mutual respect. Reaching that point will take coordinated and sustained heavy political and diplomatic lifting to overcome the headwinds that such endeavors will no doubt encounter. I'm Sherman Rice-Pease in New York.
A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Now, Discovery, an international financial and health services company, has hosted its inaugural Sleep Summit on Tuesday in Johannesburg, South Africa. Now, the event aimed at elevating one of the most overlooked pillars of health, and that's sleep, brought together local and global thought leaders, clinical experts, and Discovery executives. The company unveiled its new research report, The Sleep Factor, a data-led blueprint for better health, and announced the integration of sleep as a measurable, incentivized behavior across Discovery Health, Vitality, and Insure. Sisi Sechalo has more on the story.
Discovery revealed a recent study titled The Sleep Factor, a data-led blueprint for better health. The study, that includes sleep data, was done across over 100,000 Discovery Health Medical Scheme members and Vitality members. The company expressed that the sleep factor is one of the most comprehensive analyses of sleep health in the private sector and reveals that sleep has measurable impacts on longevity, mental health, chronic disease, and road safety. The Chief Executive Officer of Discovery Health, Dr. Ron Willen, elaborates further on the study.
So we've done a study that includes sleep data across over 100,000 Discovery Health Medical Scheme members and Vitality members. And the duration of the data is over about a period of 3 years. As part of that study, we've analyzed 47 million sleep nights of data. So it is an extensive study with an extensive data set, and we've analyzed all of the attributes of good sleep, the regularity with which people, the regularity of the time at which people go to bed. We've analyzed the quality of sleep, REM sleep or rapid eye movement sleep, deep sleep, and then we've analyzed the duration of sleep. But in addition to the analytics that we've done on sleep, we've also combined the sleep data analysis with the health claims data analysis. So what we're able to see is not only the way you sleep, but also your underlying health status.
He explains how poor sleep can affect one's health, as it is the case with their medical aid members.
What we've seen from this particular study we've done is that sleep has a profound impact on health. On the one side of the equation, bad sleep can increase the rates of chronic disease. So less than 5 hours of sleep a night can increase the rates of diabetes by up to 68%. Significant chronic disease. Less than 7 hours of sleep a night can increase casualty visits by up to 21%. And we know that sleep has an impact on cardiovascular disease, on mental health, and other conditions. Conversely, we know that good sleep can improve mortality rates.
Not only does poor sleep affect your health, but it can hit hard in the pocket, as Dr. Willen explains.
There is a clear impact on health insurance and clear impact on health claims costs. As I said, a 7% lower in-hospital claims cost with people who are sleeping better. Lower chronic disease in people who are sleeping better, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, mental health disease. And if there's lower prevalence of those conditions, there are lower claims costs and then lower contributions. And then we've seen some interesting data from our colleagues at Discovery Insure who run car or motor vehicle insurance. And we've seen across the car data or the Discovery Insure data, by sleeping better and specifically improving REM sleep, you can reduce motor vehicle accidents by 36%.
Professor Nadine Ram from the Division of Clinical Anatomy at the Faculty of Medicine and Health Science at the Stellenbosch University in South Africa agrees that sleep is vital.
Sleep forms the foundation of our health, and when we don't get adequate amounts of sleep or good quality sleep, we see it impacting nearly every single aspect of our lives, from our physical health to our mental health. And you asked about what the duration is. So typically it is 7 to 9 hours is recommended for optimal health in adults.
And what happens if you don't get those 7 to 9 hours?
Like I've mentioned, we start to see implications for our health, our vitality, and our mental and cognitive states.
The company emphasized that it's doing its best to ensure that their employees, who are members of Discovery Health Medical Scheme, give them precise and personalized recommendations on how to improve their sleep. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
South Africa's national under-20 men's football team, Amajita, are through to the knockout round of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Be with us this Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. as Amajita face Colombia, streaming live on SABC+. And there's more. Other Under-20 World Cup matches are streaming live on SABC+, with selected fixtures on SABC Sport Channel and SABC1. Wave the flag, Mzansi, stand up for Amajita. FIFA Under-20 World Cup, Amajita coverage on SABC+, powered by SABC Sport.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The United States was very vocal at the beginning of South Africa's G20 presidency, and this is largely due to strained relations with South Africa at the time, that they were not really keen on participating. Where do they stand right now?
The U.S. is planning to take over the presidency of the G20 next year, and our understanding from them is that they intend to continue to do so, and therefore it is quite difficult then to be in a situation where you are not attending deputies' meetings or discussions during our presidency and then to take over the presidency next year. From a finance track perspective, there has been engagement. We've been working on a communique last week and this week here in Zimbabwe. What's important about that is that it's a consensus document. And so all the members in the room have to agree to the language that is used there. And our US colleagues have been part of those discussions and negotiations.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
It's 7:30. Let's find out what's in our news headlines with Onelin Sinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina says he plans to hold a national dialogue with various groups today. This after youth protesters issued a 48-hour ultimatum for him to agree to their demands or face a national strike. Members of Parliament's ad hoc committee in South Africa, established to investigate allegations of national security, will today interrogate the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. The committee is investigating allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the criminal justice system made by Mkhwanazi in July. And hundreds of U.S. National Guard troops from Texas have arrived in Chicago to support President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. Some of the state governors have called the move unconstitutional and an invasion. Channel Africa News, I'm Onelin Sinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African perspective.
And now let's find out what's happening again in the world of sports as we say good morning to Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Very good morning once again from the sports day. So Morocco have already booked their place in the FIFA World Cup tournament in Group E. The likes of Tanzania as well as Zambia will be hoping to bow out of the qualifying campaign. This on a high note, beginning with their clash at the Amani Stadium in Dar es Salaam tonight at 9 p.m. Central African time. So both Tanzania as well as Zambia are unable to qualify for the global showpiece, given their standing in Group E. The Taifa Stars are currently second in their group, 11 points behind Morocco, while Zambia, on the other hand, are fourth placed in this group and have accumulated just 6 points from just 6 matches played so far in the qualifying campaign. On to this now, cricket news. While South Africa's national women's cricket team are relishing, or rather are doing so far not too badly in the Women's World Cup and did so get a win, their first win of this year's tournament on Monday. This was against New Zealand. The South African men's team is gearing up to start the title defence of its World Test Championship. Now the Proteas will play 2 test matches against Pakistan starting in Lahore on Sunday. The Proteas have spent the last few days at the High Performance Centre in Pretoria, fine-tuning their plans ahead of their tour to Pakistan. So stand-in captain, that is Aiden Markram, expects a spin onslaught from the Pakistanis.
They've managed to get the wickets to turn quite a bit. There's a couple nets where it's really exaggerated. You almost rather would have it on that side and get to that side in Pakistan and it maybe feel a bit easier, but it's been a good couple of days. Obviously still got the afternoon session now as well, but expecting the spin side of things big time. Naturally a lot lower there from a seam point of view, a lot more skiddy. So it's quite hard to emulate here that in South Africa, but we're trying to put a bit of emphasis on that and find ways of training that as well.
On to this now, Conor McGregor has accepted an 18-month ban for violating the UFC's anti-doping policy. So according to Combat Sports Anti-Doping, Irish fighter McGregor missed 3 attempted biological sample collections within a 12-month period in 2024. Now, UFC policy dictates that athletes must provide accurate whereabouts information at all times so they can be contacted and also submit to biological sample collections without warning. McGregor, who has not competed professionally since suffering a broken leg in his last fight against Dustin Poirier in July of 2021, missed tests last year on the 13th of June, the 19th of September, as well as the 20th of September. Now, the organization said it reduced McGregor's ban from 24 months to 18 months in acknowledgement of his cooperation with the investigation as well as injury circumstances. Well, the undefeated mixed martial artist, that is Justin Clark, says he is ready to topple Maxwell Nana in the semi-finals of the PFL Africa Heavyweight Tournament on the 18th of October. Now, the PFL will stage a fight night in Kigali in Rwanda for the very first time, and Clark is eager to make his impact on foreign soil after his first round TKO triumph over Joshua Tisha in Cape Town back in July of this year. Now, the winner of this upcoming bout will then go on then to book his place in the heavyweight final in Benin on the 20th of December, and Clark is embracing the challenge that lies ahead.
I'm excited to see a new city. I've heard a lot from people saying Kigali is actually quite amazing. Obviously, you do have that feeling where it's might be a little bit lonely because you don't have any family there to back you. Yes. That's fine. I've fought in foreign soil before. But with regards to Maxwell Nana, I see he likes striking, but he comes from a Sambo background. Now in Sambo, you're allowed to wrestle and take down and stuff. And from just watching some of his fights, say he likes to strike, but he'll reserve his takedowns for when it's necessary. So I do see it being a stand-up fight first and foremost.
So the winner of the PFL Africa tournament will be invited to compete in the global PFL tournament at some point in 2026, and Clark is poised to further amplify the global ascent of South African MMA.
There have been a lot of fighters before Drickus, but I believe Drickus was the last fighter that basically really brought the spotlight to South Africa, or Africa. Yeah. And just showcase, say, listen, we can, from our small little countries, produce champions. And we've got the grit and stuff. Oftentimes, it's just the knowledge of trainers and stuff like that holds people back. But the perseverance, the grit, the work ethic, it's all here. The athleticism, it's here. And he did shed a light on that. And obviously, even for the UFC, might come to African soil first.
Well, so for any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibu Di Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Annika Longi sur Channel Africa.
Comment est-ce que les militants et sympathisants du parti Les Transformateurs ont-ils réagi face à la condamnation de Succès Masra?
La condamnation de Succès Masra ne nous a pas surpris et les militants transformateurs ont été bouleversés et indignés étant donné que le verdict est un verdict lourd, illégal, injuste et donc face à la répression dans laquelle le peuple tchadien est confronté, les militants transformateurs se sont résignés de ne pouvoir pas sortir manifester. Et donc, c'est une situation totalement absurde pour un pays. Et aujourd'hui, nous célébrons le 11 août, fête de l'indépendance. On pensait que le verdict allait être plus ou moins clément, mais le verdict est sévère.
Annika Longi, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
It's time to focus on some business and economics and what's happening in the world of business. We say good morning once again to Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, Peter, and thank you. Let's start in Kenya. The central bank cut its benchmark lending rate for the 8th meeting in a row, saying there was room to ease monetary policy further as inflation remains well within its target range. The decision takes the Central Bank of Kenya's policy rate to 9.25% from 9.50% previously. The bank's Monetary Policy Committee MPC says the 25 basis point rate cut would bolster previous moves to stimulate lending by banks to the private sector and support economic activity, while ensuring inflationary expectations remain well anchored. Consumer inflation stood at 4.6% year-on-year in September, up slightly from 4.5% the previous month, but comfortably inside the 2.5% to 7.5% target band. Egypt's current account deficit narrowed to $2.2 billion in the April-June 2025 quarter from $3.7 billion in the same period a year earlier. The bank attributed the similar deficit in fiscal 2024-25 to higher remittances and tourism revenue. Revenue from the Suez Canal increased to $1 billion this quarter from $800 million. The increase is marginal since attacks by Iran's aligned Houthi group on ships in the Red Sea continue to disrupt traffic through the vital waterway. The Houthis say the attacks are in support of Palestinians in Gaza. In other news, the South African Amalgamated and Integrated Workers Union has called on the Gauteng Province Education MEC Matume Chilwane to urgently address the issue of delayed payments to employees of Urban Watch Security. The security company, which provides services to numerous schools in the province, has reportedly not paid its employees for over 3 months. Urban Watch Security has attributed the delays to the Department of Education, claiming that the department failed to make necessary payments, which has resulted in the non-payment of its employees. Zakel Nsele is the union's Gauteng provincial organizer.
We communicate with COO of Urban Watch, we communicate with the CEO of Urban Watch to try to resolve this matter, but every time they're promising. Even now, I think they told me yesterday that the department is going to pay them today. Maybe tomorrow they can pay our security officers, but I don't believe. I'm looking the clarity maybe to MEC of Education, Mr. Matume Chilwane, and his boss, Mr. Panyaza Lesotho, to influence, to try to resolve this matter as soon as possible.
The G20 nations acknowledged the vital role of energy efficiency in driving sustainable growth and meeting Paris Agreement's targets, as well as prioritizing enhanced energy productivity and increased investment in energy-efficient solutions. This will be part of the discussions of the G20 Energy Transition Working Group in Durban, South Africa this week. The South African Deputy Minister of Electricity and Energy, Samantha Graham-Murray, says in Africa there are over 500 million people who do not have access to any form of energy. Speaking at a conference on the sidelines of the working group meeting, Graham-Murray says it is very concerning that a large number of women and children die because of unclean cooking methods.
You've got over 1 billion Africans who use unclean cooking facilities to make their food. Clean cooking is also one of our G20 priorities, and it's something that we are focusing strongly on, not just in South Africa, but throughout Africa. Access to energy is also something that we are focusing on. But what we're saying is that if we can create an energy efficient mindset, we don't have to create as much energy. So we're talking about saving by 2063 about 40 gigawatts of electricity that won't have to be produced if we start using energy more efficiently.
The International Monetary Fund says emerging markets have shown remarkable resilience to risk of shocks in recent years. The IMF says policy upgrades underpin emerging market resilience. Releasing its World Economic Outlook, Chapter 2 focusing on emerging markets, the organization says improvements in policy frameworks played a critical role in bolstering the capacity of emerging markets to withstand risk of shocks. Nothando Magudulela reports.
The IMF says since the global financial crisis, emerging markets have consistently demonstrated a remarkable capacity to withstand major risk of global shocks. These include the severe economic disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent surge in global inflation. The report says while favorable external conditions have played a supporting role, a new analysis suggests that improvements in policy frameworks are yielding high returns.
Your financial indicators at this hour: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,467 naira, Botswana 13 pula 20, Kenya the dollar is 128 shilling 23, Zambia 23 kwacha 73. BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 32, in Russia 82 rubles 25, India 88 rupees 73, China 71.11, South Africa 17 rand 19 cents. $1 is 74 pence to the British pound, 85 to the euro. Commodities: gold is at $4,010, platinum at $1,656 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $65.95 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 011-714-4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
South Africa's healthcare system could collapse in the future if nothing is done to address the dire challenges facing the health sector. This was one of the issues highlighted at the Health Association of South Africa, HASA conference, that's been taking place over the past 2 days at the Sandton Convention Centre north of Johannesburg in South Africa. Tutong Gobeni compiled this report.
The discussions were loud and clear. There's an urgent need to respond to the pressing challenges facing South Africa's healthcare system. The delegates attending the 2025 edition of the Hospital Association of South Africa HASA conference at the Sandton Convention Centre agreed on this pressing issue. The two-day conference, which ran from Monday under the theme Sustainable Healthcare Together, also hosted an exhibition showcasing the latest innovation and technology in this sector. The event shone the spotlight on resilience and innovation as a new era heralded by digital transformation that informs the way things are being done globally across all sectors. The conference was organized by the HASA board, which is nominated and elected annually from among member groups, with board members serving voluntarily. Dr. Bianca Mentur is part of the outgoing board that organized this year's conference. Mentur says the conference was a success.
It's been a really fascinating 2 days. It's an annual gathering that I think a lot of us look forward to. I do think it's been a success. Having said that, though, I think the true marker is going to be what follows, the action that follows from these very meaningful conversations we've been able to have. The program this year has looked different to in previous years. We've got a really good mix of insights into innovations that are happening locally and internationally that give us the impression that we really are on the cusp of something great in healthcare in terms of the revolution that's coming with digitization and technological advancements. And then coupled with that, the kind of policy questions that were tabled around where to who's taking action and why have we not yet taken the action. So yeah, I think the real metric of success will be the days and weeks to follow.
Mentur says what was clear during the discussions throughout the 2 days was that the Southern African nation's healthcare system is in trouble, and the response to this should be top priority so that citizens can enjoy functional healthcare services.
What we've also seen is a great alignment around the fact that healthcare in South Africa is in crisis. And a lot of the topics that we've heard over the last 2 days have reflected that in terms of the urgency that we need to start adopting and how we start to address the challenges we're facing.
Furthermore, Mentur says the delegates spoke in one voice, calling for all stakeholders to urgently come to the table to find solutions to the current disaster facing the country's healthcare system.
So there's been a lot of call for action and a lot less talk kind of been tabled through these 2 days. So the urgent kind of clarion call that I've at least received from these 2 days has been, guys, we need to figure something out as a collective so we can chart the way forward. We can no longer try to solve this in isolation. And as I said, the real metric is going to be once we leave here and go back to kind of business as usual, do we take heed of this and do we then act as a collective, sit down, cross the divide, be it within the private sector or between public and private? Are we bold enough and courageous enough to take action now before it's too late?
Meanwhile, Mandy Topkin, who was also part of the outgoing board, also agreed that the current state of the country's healthcare system is dependent on all relevant parties, regardless of whether they are in the public or private sector. She warned that if nothing is done to address these problems, the system could fold.
NHI is not the central discussion of this conference at all, because whether NHI happens or not, in the end, it's not about NHI, it's not about private sector, it's not about the public sector, it's about the people of this country who deserve healthcare. That's what it's about. End of story. If the politicians don't see it, well, they're old and their children will see it. And if the healthcare people don't see it, well, they're old and their children will see it. So the end of the matter is, does it matter if we don't do something about it? If we don't do something about whether we're public or private, we're going to collapse healthcare in South Africa. And that is what will matter.
The conference was attended by several international and South African experts in healthcare. Marwan Barnes, a delegate at the conference, expressed satisfaction and praised the event for the insightful discussions that they deliberated on.
First of all, the conference was well put together by HASA as always. The topics were insightful, obviously quite engaging as well, and very topical. Certainly my favorite segment of it was navigating the uncertainty, particular focus on the HMI and the NSI aspects, which I found particularly engaging, interesting.
For Channel Africa News, I am Tutongo Beni in Johannesburg.
From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
10 to the top of the hour, it is Central African time. Let's take a look at the Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research, or SIGIA, Gender Conference. This entered its second day today in Cape Town. The event brings together scientists, policymakers, and development partners from across the globe to focus on advancing gender equality in agriculture, food, and water systems. With climate shocks, rising food prices, and resource pressures affecting smallholder farmers, particularly women and young people, the conference is being watched closely as a critical moment for shaping both policy and practice. Joining us now is Dr. Nicoline Dehaan, Director of the CGR Gender Impact Platform, to discuss further. Dr. Dehaan, good morning to you and thanks for making time for us.
Good morning.
The conference enters its second day today. What are some of the key discussions or insights that have emerged from it so far?
The conference is basically set up to talk about gender issues in agriculture, because we do know, and research has shown, and it's a research conference, research has shown that women often don't have as much access to information, to extension service, to land, to seeds, all those things in agriculture. So we're a group of researchers who try to figure out some of those evidence gaps, but also to try to make things visible. About 20 years ago, a lot of agriculture, you would think it's only about men. And we've been working to make sure that women become visible in that space and that they can actually have a voice, so that they have a voice in what sort of agricultural system they want and are able to access all the technologies to make it better. So those are the type of things that are being discussed. And so we do discuss things like how important is actually fixing what we call fixing the women and fixing the system. So we've often have a tradition of, well, we'll give women more education, we'll give them more support, financial support. But that's all fixing the women. And so we're also moving more towards that conversation of how do you actually fix the system? And the system is a lot of pieces to it. It's policy, it's norms, it's also aspirations. What is a woman allowed to aspire to in agriculture? Classic case is we often talk about women in chickens or goats. Why don't we talk about women and cattle more? So those are the type of things we're really trying to uncover, unpack, and help guide the agricultural world to do better, so that we can actually lever more technologies and ideas and concepts for women. So, yeah.
Which of these challenges do you see as most pressing to address currently?
I think the most pressing one is two things. Two things is that we do notice that some of the more difficult and the more intractable things to work on is norms. It is what we as society assume women and men can do, and those are often very complicated to deal with. There's no silver bullet. So I think that's what we really need to work on. But the other one as well, I think is very important as we move forward, is the whole issue of climate change. Climate change is going to affect the food system. So we do need all hands on board to actually solve it, to make sure we can actually feed ourselves in 10 years. So those are the two things that I think are the most important. So one that's very slow moving, and the other one that's very intense and very much in our face.
Are there any examples of success stories from the conference that you can share with us that show how research and policy have made a positive impact when it comes to women and young people in the agricultural space and food spaces?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing quite a lot of work on figuring out what sort of traits women want in their seeds or in their grains, in their beans. We notice that women often want beans that cook faster so that they don't have to get wood from far away. So that's one of those cases. Another one, for instance, for livestock, when you're looking at livestock, women often end up feeding the livestock. That's one of their duties often. So we're trying to breed forages or grasses that are actually much easier to handle for women. Because I don't know if you know, but some of the forages that we have actually cut you. The grass homes cut you. And so we're trying to breed for better ones. But even on policy side, when you look at livestock, for instance, we work with countries, in a lot of countries, to work on livestock investment plans. So understanding the the livestock sector in a country, and then we make sure that we also show that women are part of that, so that actually when the policymakers come, they understand that women are a big part of the livestock sector. They often do own a lot of goats and chicken. And so if we do that, then we actually can make sure that the investment also goes to women. So those are the type of things that we actually work on.
Another challenge that's been cited in terms of our continent is our heavy reliance on fertilizer imports and how policy can be used to change that. Has the conference touched on that? Will it?
Specifically on fertilizer, no, I'll be honest. I mean, as part of a whole landscape of understanding agriculture, yes. And again, that's one of those things, a good point you bring up, because that's one of the other things in this conference is we bring together a whole group of people, also other practitioners, so not only researchers, to actually also figure out what are the questions, what are the research questions we as a research group can help solve. And fertilizer has not been on top of our agenda, but who knows, maybe it will be.
Right. So let's look ahead then to the UN's International Year of the Woman Farmer in 2026. How do you hope the outcomes of this conference will shape global efforts to support women in agriculture?
I think, first of all, it's neat that we actually have a year where we call out the role that women farmers do, because we do appreciate that women do between 40 to 60% of the labor in agriculture, including in Africa. So first of all, the fact that we're highlighting this and highlighting that role that she plays is important. But I also think it also will allow us to, and we see this conference also as bringing solutions, because there's a lot of often conversations about how women are overburdened, how women are victims of climate change, etc. And we want to turn that around. We know women are strong, women have agency, and women need to be part of that conversation and give them solutions, what actually works for them and what actually works for them in the system. Now, I do want to highlight, I do talk a lot about women, but we also understand that it's not only women. Gender is the relation between men and women, and how do we actually unlock it so that everybody benefits from what we're doing?
Dr. Dehan, thank you so much again for your time. We'll leave it there for today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Dr. Nicoline Dehan, Director of the Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research, or CGIAR, Gender Impact Platform, speaking on the second day of the CGIAR Gender Conference. It's taking place here in South Africa in the city of Cape Town.
A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's national under-20 men's football team, Amajita, are through to the knockout round of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Be with us this Wednesday at 21:30 Central Africa time as Amajita face Colombia, streaming live on SABC+. And there's more. Other Under-20 World Cup matches are streaming live on SABC+, with selected matches streaming live on SABC+, and other fixtures on SABC Sport channel and SABC 1. So go on, wave the flag. Mzansi, stand up for Amajita. FIFA Under-20 World Cup Amajita coverage on SABC+. And of course, this is powered by SABC Sport.
From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, Rise and Shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
It's 8 o'clock Central African time, which means it's time for the last hour of Rise and Shine this Wednesday morning. And we're broadcasting live from our studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, on the internet. www.channelafrica.co.za is where we're at. And also you can get us on your mobile apps. So just go to the App Store, look for SABC Plus, and then look for Channel Africa. And you can take us wherever you may be. I'm Peter Ndoro.
My name is Asanda, Beda. In this hour, we go to Tanzania, who are heading for elections. And as a build-up to those elections, quite a few developments having happened in the country. Of course, we heard in the news earlier from Onele Nzinzi there, an update on the former ambassador to Cuba from the country, being abducted or kidnapped. And of course, Tundu Lissu, leader of the opposition Chadema, having appeared in court on Monday on treason trial, or his treason trial. So we'll be looking at those stories and other stories that add to the build-up to Tanzania's elections. 29th of October will be here now. So we'll see how that plans out. Let's get our news. Did I say my name? It's Asanda Beda.
It's really disturbing what's happening in Tanzania.
Yeah.
We'll unpack it more, but this is not the country of Julius Nyerere, Jakaya Kikwete. I don't know what's happened.
Yeah. Definitely a lot has happened and it's changed. Let's get our news. Here's Onele Nzinzi, and then following her is Musibudi Makura with sports headlines.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina says he plans to hold a national dialogue with various groups today. This after youth protesters issued a 48-hour ultimatum for him to agree to their demands of first a national strike. On Monday, Rajoelina named Army General Rafin Fortunate Zafisambo as the new Prime Minister. This is a week after he fired his cabinet in a move intended to address the grievances that sparked the demonstrations on September 25. But the reshuffle has failed to appease the protesters who initially took to the streets over water and electricity shortages in the impoverished African nation. Members of Parliament's ad hoc committee in South Africa, established to investigate allegations of national security, will today interrogate the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. The committee is investigating allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the criminal justice system made by Mkhwanazi in July. Mkhwanazi, the committee's first witness, appeared yesterday and will finalize his appearance today. Yesterday, Mkhwanazi was questioned by Advocate Norman Arendse, Senior Counsel, and the evidence leader appointed by Parliament. Meanwhile, the Police and Prison Civil Rights Union POPCRU in South Africa has raised concerns on developments within the criminal justice cluster, which it says continue to face systematic challenges. POPCRU is holding its Central Executive Committee meeting at the Birchwood Hotel east of Johannesburg. The meeting comes as probes into allegations of corruption within the criminal justice system continue. POPCRU President Thulani Ngwenya says they look to the process to get to the bottom of the allegations.
We have to worry because that is where our members are. That is where we're organizing. Our members are working day in and day out, being killed on the road. When the elders there on top, they are busy soliciting whatever they want to solicit. But we're saying the president has made a call for the truth to come out.
South African activists who were part of the global Sumud flotilla, which was intercepted by Israel, are expected to arrive in the country today. The activists were abducted in international waters while on their way to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. They arrived in Jordan yesterday after a few days in Israeli detention and are expected to land at the OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg this morning. Griselda Lewis reports.
They arrive home at about 9:30 this morning, we understand, from Qatar. It's going to be quite a relief for them and their families as well. You know that there's been widespread criticism and international condemnation of the interception of this global Sumud flotilla, which was on its way to Gaza to deliver humanitarian aid. Of course, you'd know that the humanitarian crisis in that war-stricken country is quite well documented.
Lastly, hundreds of U.S. National Guard troops from Texas have arrived in Chicago to support President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. Some state governors have called the move unconstitutional and an invasion. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson told the BBC he would be appealing to the courts.
We saw the ruling in Portland, Oregon, in the state of Oregon, where a judge has provided a temporary restraining order, and we fully expect that to happen here in the state of Illinois as well. It's unconstitutional. This is an ultimate provocation, and it's an overreach of our Constitution, not what the framers of this country had in mind. Checks and balances. If Congress is not going to do that, I, as the mayor of the city of Chicago, will certainly provide it.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Ghana looked to maintain pole position in Group I in the FIFA World Cup qualifiers, while Novak Djokovic battles through injury to reach the last 8 at the Shanghai Masters. Details at 8:30.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
All right, Tanzania going to elections on the 29th of October is the story we look at now. And the vote is said to be taking place amidst significant political uncertainties and a constrained democratic space. The country's main opposition leader, Tundu Lissu, went on trial for treason this week, and his party Chadema has been barred from contesting the elections in this East African country. And now to discuss further, we are joined by DS Valentine Royemamu, the Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Strategic Litigation, an organization he co-founded to address issues of the rule of law, accountability and constitutional culture, as we get a wrap of the build-up to these elections.
And a little bit later on, I'm going to be talking to Dr. Nshala, who is the Attorney General for the opposition party Chadema. And as you've just heard from Asanda there, Tundu Lissu really has been facing the brunt of political forces in the country and is facing trial. So we'll be unpacking that with the party's Attorney General.
Dios, let's start with you. A very good morning and thanks for joining us on Rise and Shine.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me, Asanda.
Let's paint a picture then of Tanzanians heading to the elections at the end of the month, 29th of October. What do these elections mean for the people of Tanzania, given a lot of the clampdown on those who are critical of the government?
Yeah, I think these elections are essentially a lost opportunity. This is the seventh general election since the reintroduction of multi-party politics in 1992. At that point, a presidential commission led by the then Chief Justice Francis Nyalali had stipulated about 114 recommendations, and just about 50% of those were eventually implemented. Some of the most important recommendations, which had to do with amending Tanzania's constitution to provide for a level playing field for multi-party politics, had never been implemented 33 years later. Tanzanians' patience with that non-implementation has been waning over the years, and this is what led to the major opposition party, Chadema, staying out of these elections, having tried very hard through dialogue and engagement with the authorities to push for these long overdue reforms. So the inability to enact these reforms has created conditions that cannot guarantee free and fair elections in Tanzania. The Tanzanian parliament passed a new a couple of new election laws, three of them in February 2024. We had 20 months before these elections for enacting some critical reforms, including the manner through which the Electoral Commission is appointed. The new law provides for a much more thorough process, a thorough process that would have allowed for some competitive hiring of the members of the commission. But unfortunately, the same law, Act number 2 of 2024, uh, provides explicitly that the existing commission, which was single handedly picked by the chair of the ruling party, shall not be replaced until such time their tenure ends, which should be at the end of 2026. So I think in the minds of Tanzanians, there are questions around electoral justice, given how the framework is tilted towards favoring the establishment, but also in the minds of Tanzanians, there are big questions around personal liberty and safety. In June this year, UN special mandates on various rights released a statement, or rather a communication to the Tanzanian government in the lead up to the Human Rights Council sessions, the 59 sessions, where they pointed out concern around the enforced disappearances of over 200 people since the last election. And there was expectation at that stage that an investigation, an inquiry into this phenomenon would have taken place. But instead, what we have seen is a growing intolerance for dissent, and even more people than were reported in June have been abducted. The most high profile being this week's abduction of the former spokesperson, the former ruling party's spokesperson, Humphrey Pole Pole, who was violently abducted from his home in Dar es Salaam for simply calling out the current faction of the ruling party that is in power. So the question is, how safe are Tanzanians in light of the fact that the police force seems to have been overrun by a violent gang that operates outside the premise of the of formal security apparatus, but seems to have more power than the established security apparatus. And finally, I think the big questions that were being raised by this newfound critic, who is the former spokesperson of the ruling party, centered around the mismanagement of public resources, the acquisition of major public resources, including the concession of the port of Dar es Salaam, but also concessions around mining, which, according to him, do not meet the legal requirements provided under Tanzanian law. So, whilst many of us expected that the elections, as ordinarily, would have provided an opportunity for us to debate big questions around how we manage our resources, big questions around how whatever party would come in power would guarantee personal liberty, and big questions around how these parties would have provided, finally, after 33 years of waiting, a pathway to significant democratic reforms. The debate has shifted into concern around mostly personal liberty and the space for dissent in Tanzania.
On that question of personal liberty and security, does it further exacerbate then the image that the police in Tanzania have and security forces who have been seen to be heavy-handed against those who are dissenting voices against the government? This particular case that we cite of the former ambassador to Cuba, Humphrey Pole Pole, who's now gone missing or was abducted violently from his home. How does this particular case make the police look now?
Well, it points to two main observations. One is, of course, an incredible level of impunity, because what we're hearing so far, and according to Humphrey himself, is that there is a vigilante force operating within the structure of the official police. The police, in their most recent statement about a month ago, did not take much responsibility for the security crisis that we are observing at the moment, other than basically claiming that not everybody who disappears is enforcedly disappeared. Rather, there could be many factors, including people who fall into debt, Sometimes it is domestic issues, jealousy, and the like. So the police has really failed to account for the current situation. But the running mate, the ruling party's running mate, Ambassador Emmanuel Nchimbi, spoke in November 2024 last year, where he actually said that he believes that there is a gang. He never really gave further details of who constitutes this gang, and suggested that this gang was making effort to overrun the official security apparatus. So I think that the picture is overall very gloomy, but there hasn't been enough evidence of exactly who is behind these operations, much more speculation of who could be behind them.
These developments ahead of Tanzania's elections, where do they place the current president Samia Suluhu Hassan and her image?
Well, it's very concerning. I think President Samia has struggled with asserting her legitimacy. She came in as the first unelected president following the death of her predecessor, John Magufuli, in March 2021. The initial few months were filled with hope. I think Tanzanians had gone through a quite repressive period, and there was desperation for a positive and hopeful message, which I believe she lived up to. She engaged in rhetoric that suggested she was committed to democratic reforms. She inaugurated her own philosophy, the 4R philosophy, focused on resilience, rebuilding, reconciliation, and reforms. And there was, initial activity engaging with the opposition, the formulation of a national task force to review the conditions for Tanzania's democracy. They submitted a report in October 2022. So the first 2 years were filled with hope. But I think what we have also seen, parallel to that, is a state of vulnerability and insecurity on the part of President Samia that we struggle to fully comprehend. We understand that there was resistance within the ruling party, within the establishment, to her ascension to the presidency, but I don't think she has done an incredibly good job at quelling those concerns through this election. What we have seen instead is her administration working very hard to ensure there isn't an election to begin with, and as you rightly pointed out, more of a coronation with every significant contender ruled out of these elections. The remaining 17 candidates have never held public office before, so there's not a reason to believe that they are viable challengers. And at the end of this process, given the lack of competition, given the lack of reforms leading up to these elections, despite her initial promises, given the heightened security risks, especially for those dissenting voices, and given the noise we're hearing around mismanagement of public resources, my take is that at the end of this election, the concerns around her credibility and legitimacy will have grown even further. I don't think these elections will help to give her a fresh mandate. Instead, immediately after the elections, we're likely to see a growing resentment within Tanzania's political class and certainly among Tanzanians' youth that will further erode the goodwill that she was able to amass during the first few months of her administration.
Thank you, DS. We're going to leave it there for now in terms of this first part of the conversation. Of course, we continue with our coverage of the build-up to Tanzania's elections, speaking to the opposition. DS, thanks again for your time.
Thanks very much for inviting me.
DS Valentine Royemamu is from the Center for Strategic Litigation. He is a democratic and governance expert. I wonder, when it comes to observations of these elections, how that will play out in terms of how free Are they able to make movements in the country? Because we saw earlier when there was solidarity from neighboring countries, from Uganda, from Kenya, for the opposition parties appearing in court, and those wanting to show their support, who were kicked out of the country, and they were told that they're interfering in matters that are of no concern to them and shouldn't be.
Yeah, well, what we know on the continent is that observer missions actually, they're nice to have, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because nothing of consequence ever happens as a result of any observer mission I have ever had experience with. So whether they get access or not, what is going to be, sadly. So we've just heard from Deus Valentine Rweye Mamu, who's talking about the broad pressures and pattern of democratic backsliding in Tanzania. We now turn to Chadema, Chama cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo, which is Swahili for Party for Democracy and Progress, and this is the main opposition party that's been disqualified from contesting this month's elections. And with us is Dr. Rugemeleza Nshala, who's Chadema's Attorney General, to discuss how this impacts the rules, the politics, and also Tanzania's democratic trajectory. Dr. Nshala, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to Channel Africa.
Thank you very much.
Your thoughts on the Commission's justification that Chadema failed to sign the mandatory electoral code for conduct, therefore justifying your exclusion?
Not at all, because the ethical code that was promulgated by the so-called Independent National Electoral Commission was not in total adherence to the principles of fair and free elections, to have an independent commission that Chadema has been advocating. And the time when that announcement was made on the 12th of April 2025, the rules, the code itself said it will come into force a day after the nomination of the candidates, and that was not even the parliament had not been dissolved. That was in April. The parliament was dissolved on the 3rd of August 2025. But that was an indication, or it was a proof of how that commission is highly compromised, and was only there to serve the intentions of CCM, to ensure that CCM remains in power no matter what, and that Samia, who had presided over our nomination, unprecedented even in the Tanzanian terms, in January 2025, in a meeting that was not scheduled to be a convention for the nomination of candidates, and but still that commission accepted her to be the CCM candidate. So basically, the commission was just doing the CCM bidding or Samia's bidding, and for that matter, Chadema said no way. We want fundamental reforms to ensure that we have free and fair elections, and we cannot partake in that in a sham process to try to give a veneer of legitimacy to a highly compromised system, which is basically which Chadema will not be part of. We tried to reason with the CCM, to try to reason with Samia, but ultimately she found that she could not win against Chadema. So the only way was to find a shortcut and to stay in power. That's what happened.
Do you have any recourse? I mean, what's the plan now, given what's playing out? Can the courts come to your assistance, or do you have faith in the courts?
No, in terms of the elections, no one will say we have faith. The courts, the way they are structured now, and the things, the way they conduct themselves in those election cases that were filed in 2018, 2019, then the ensuing ones which have been filed recently by other political parties or other activists, show that you cannot achieve much through the court process. So we thought that the only people that have to go to the Tanzanian people to make an appeal to them that we cannot be part of this system, because in all those processes, in all the other past elections that we have taken part into, they resulted into the killings of our supporters. And so we don't want to be part of a process where our supporters, the youth, will go out there but will be abducted, will be enforced, disappeared. And for that matter, we said we could not be part of it. So our recourse is to the Tanzanian people that they want them to take action against the government, against the system, and basically organize themselves in a manner that is within the democratic space of agitating and campaigning for fundamental reforms. So our main bedrock and supporters and the ultimate judges are the Tanzanian people. But the way things are, Tanzania is also almost, my friends, almost we are in a terrible state that I think even the colonialists did better than what CCM and Samia are doing.
So Chadema is not going to be on the ballot paper. Is that the position you're taking? And when you say called citizens to action, what are we talking about here? Are we talking demonstrations? Are we talking boycotts? What are we looking at?
It's all of that. The demonstration is part of that, to agitate, to voice their concerns. Some people might boycott, some people might demonstrate. I think we've seen some youths who are organizing themselves to demonstrate on the 29th of October. That's one of those things that might happen. Other people might stay back home. That's fine. But basically, CCM now, I don't know if you have seen that, all the political rallies that Samia has organized and the CCM, people are being bussed in from 5 regions of the country. Assume people being felled, let's say, from Pretoria, from Port Elizabeth, and being brought to Johannesburg to attend the ANC political rally or EFF political rally. That's the state in Tanzania, because Samia is not that popular. CCM is not that popular. So they are forcing even civil servants to not attend, to not go to work, but rather go and attend Samia's political rallies. Students, primary public school students of secondary school are being told to wear civilian clothes, and they're taken to attend Samia political rallies because she's so unpopular that people don't like her, don't love her, but she's using the state machinery. And this is an corruption-ridden election. Can you imagine? You have a system candidate with a name being emblazoned on the motorcycles, on bicycles, in which is contrary to the Tanzanian law. You're not supposed to give things to incentivize people to vote for you. That's corruption. But the so-called Independent National Electoral Commission and our anti-corruption body are not looking at it. They're paying a blind eye to all that is happening. And how can you be part of it? Tanzania know it. You can see you have a subdued election campaign, but Samia is soldiering on, using all the state resources to bankroll a campaign. And this is contrary to our constitution, and we are going to hold that to account.
What can the international community do, the observers that might come for this election? Is there any hope from the East African community in terms of looking at Tanzania and maybe even the AU?
Yeah, they can come, but I'm not sure if they are coming, because I think SADC is not coming, or if they are there, but they've seen that everything is not done in accordance with the international standards. And so I think EU is not there. The AU might be there, or SADC, but East African might be, but it's not. Whenever they've been coming here, they've been writing their reports, things that should be done to improve our elections campaign, and even the conduct. And the CCM has refused to accede to each and every of those recommendations, because for them it said we have to use the state apparatus to stay in power. And this was said by the former CCM Secretary General during Magufuli's time. We are going to use the state apparatus to remain in power. What can we do, my friend? So that's where we are. So the international community has to hold Tanzania to account. We're happy that there have been some the human rights bodies of the UN, so UN have held Tanzania to account. Then the other bodies, even the AU, for the first time, they think the Commission for the African Human Rights Commission also held Tanzania to account. So Tanzania is basically under Samia, as he backslided into anarchy, and Samia is all out there. You have seen the enforced disappearance. Even the other day, a former ambassador of Tanzania to Malawi and Cuba has been disappeared, and now the government, the police is feigning ignorance of all that took place.
Okay.
But
Dr. Nshala, we've run out of time, but very briefly, I don't know if you could just give us an update on Mr. Lusu. I believe he's back in court today.
Yeah, he's in court. He's now conducting his own defense. And so he's now doing his cross-examination of the first state witness. So the case is continuing today. So we hope that all that is happening will eventually, at least, will prevail, no matter what it's a setup kind of a case. But ultimately, I know it will be able to prevail. Thank you.
Dr. Nshala, thank you very much indeed for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's Dr. Rugemeleza Nshala, who's Chadema's Attorney General, who is joining us to talk about the challenges that opposition parties and opposition figures are facing in the country at this time. Now, South Africa's national under-20 men's football team, Amajita, are through to the knockout round of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Be with us this Wednesday at 21:30 as Amajita face Colombia. And this is streaming live on SABC+. And there's more. Other Under-20 World Cup matches are also streaming live on SABC+, with selected fixtures on SABC Sport Channel and SABC1. So wave the flag, Mzansi. Stand up for Amajita. FIFA Under-20 World Cup Amajita coverage on SABC+, powered by SABC Sport. It's 8:31, which means it's time for your news headlines. Here's Onel Nsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. According to research at the Center for Peace and Security Studies at the Modibo Adama University of Technology in Nigeria, Boko Haram, once overshadowed by its breakaway faction ISWAP, appears to be making a violent comeback in the Lake Chad region. The Police and Prison Civil Rights Union in South Africa has raised concern on developments within the criminal justice system cluster, which it says continues to face systematic challenges. Pop Crew is holding its Central Executive Committee meeting as probes into allegations of corruption within the criminal justice system in the country continues. And hundreds of U.S. National Guard troops from Texas have arrived in Chicago to support President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. Some of the state governors have called the move unconstitutional and an invasion. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
And giving us the latest now in the world of sports is Musibudi Makura. She's got our sports news. Good morning.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. So Ghana will look to maintain pole position in Group I and take one step closer, this to qualifying for the 2026 FIFA World Cup when the Black Stars face over the Central African Republic at the Stade d'Honneur in Mequinez in Morocco tonight. Now, the Central African Republic country, they sit fifth on the log standings of the 6-team Group I, having collected 5 points from their 8 games. They won against Chile in June of 2024, also have 2 draws as well as 5 losses in these qualifiers. Ghana, meanwhile, are well positioned to make their 5th appearance at a World Cup sitting in first position in Group I with about 19 points from 8 matches and only 1 loss. The Black Stars are 3 points above second place Madagascar and will be looking for a victory tonight to maintain that gap or secure qualification should Madagascar do anything but a win tonight in their other match qualifier. On to some cricket news now. South Africa's Proteas stand-in captain Aiden Markram was happy with their preparations for the upcoming tour of Pakistan and believes they covered all the bases in terms of what to expect there. Now, the team jetted off to Lahore on Tuesday, where they'll begin their all-format tour with about 2 test matches, 3 T20 internationals, as well as 3 one-day internationals from the 12th of October to the 8th of November. They held a 2-day training camp in the capital city, Pretoria, particularly the spin conditions to work on. They're going to face those spin conditions in Pakistan, and Markram says they'll be a lot more confident batting in those pitches after their training camp in the capital city, Pretoria.
They've managed to get the wickets to turn quite a bit. There's a couple of nets where it's really exaggerated. You almost rather would have it on that side and get to that side in Pakistan and it maybe feel a bit easier, but it's been a good couple of days. Obviously still the afternoon session now as well, but expecting the spin side of things big time.
For the field now, Inter Miami's former Spanish international defender Jordi Alba on Tuesday announced his decision to retire from football at the end of the ongoing Major League Soccer season. Alba, who won 93 caps for Spain between 2011 as well as 2023 and was also a key member of Barcelona's team over the same era, confirmed his decision in a post on Instagram. Alba, a gifted attacking fullback, joined Inter Miami back in 2023, linking up with former Barcelona teammate Lionel Messi as well as Sergio Busquets, who also ironically announced his retirement from international football at the end of the season. So while Alba initially had planned to extend through the 2027 season, he has reversed that decision and called time on his career. That also included 6 La Liga titles with Barcelona as well as a Champions League title. He was also a key part of the Spain team that romped to the victory back in the 2012 European Championship. Novak Djokovic overcame injury issues as well as sweltering heat as he beat Jaume Munar to continue his bid for a 5th Shanghai Masters title. The 24-time Grand Slam champion appeared to struggle with an ankle injury and called for a trainer on a number of occasions to receive treatment, but persevered to win 6-3, 5-7 and 6-2. On Sunday, Djokovic vomited during his win over Yannick Hoffmann in the previous round, which was played in temperatures of over 34 degrees Celsius and 80% humidity. On Tuesday, Djokovic called for a medical timeout after breaking to go 3-1 up in the first set and grimps as he received treatment to his left ankle. After consolidating the break, he called for a trainer again before wrapping up the opener. The Serbian continued to struggle and grasp his ankle after points, but he managed to keep pace with his opponent until the Spaniard struck the decisive blow at 5-4 to take the match to a decider, with Djokovic falling to the floor exhausted after a lengthy rally. Now, Djokovic will face world number 44 Zizo Bergs in the quarterfinals after the Belgian came from behind to beat 31-seeded Gabriel Dalot 3-6, 7-5, 7-6 in the last round of 16. And finally, Conor McGregor has accepted an 18-month ban for violating the UFC anti-doping policy. According to the Combat Sports Anti-Doping Agency, the Irish fighter McGregor missed 3 attempted biological sample collections within a 12-month period in 2024. So UFC policy dictates that athletes must provide accurate whereabouts information at all times so they can be contacted and submit to biological sample collections without warning. So McGregor, who has not competed professionally since suffering a broken leg in his last fight against Dustin Poirier back in July of 2021, missed tests last year on the 13th of June, on the 19th of September, as well as the 20th of September. Now, the organization said it reduced McGregor's ban from 24 months to 18 months in acknowledgement of his cooperation with the investigation as well as his injury circumstances. And with that, to conclude your sports news this morning on Africa Rise and Shine. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news with the On the Move team in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. And join the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Now let's find out what's happening in the world of business as we say good morning to Chandrugo Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Kenya's central bank cut its benchmark lending rate by the 8th meeting in a row, saying there was room to ease monetary policy further as inflation remains well within its target range. The decision takes the Central Bank of Kenya's policy rate to 9.25% from 9.50% previously. The bank's Monetary Policy Committee says the 25 basis point rate cut would bolster previous moves to stimulate lending by banks to the private sector and support economic activity while ensuring inflationary expectations remain well anchored. Consumer inflation stood at 4.6% year-on-year in September, up slightly from 4.5% the previous month, but comfortably inside the 2.5% to 7.5% target band. Egypt's current account deficit narrowed to $2.2 billion in the April-June 2025 quarter from $3.7 billion in the same period a year earlier. The bank attributed the slimmer deficit in fiscal 2024-25 to higher remittances and tourism revenue. Revenue from the Suez Canal increased to $1 billion this quarter from $800 million. The increase is marginal since attacks by Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthi group on ships in the Red Sea continued to disrupt traffic through the vital waterway. The Houthis say the attacks are in support of Palestinians in Gaza. The South African Amalgamated and Integrated Workers Union has called on the Gauteng Province Education MEC, Matume Chilwane, to urgently address the issue of delayed payments to employees of Urban Watch Security. The security company, which provides services to numerous schools in the province, has reportedly not paid its employees for over 3 months. Urban Watch Security has attributed the delays to the Department of Education, claiming that the department failed to make necessary payments, which has resulted in the non-payment of its employees. Zakhele Nsele is the union's Gauteng provincial organizer.
We communicate with COO of Urban Watch, we communicate with the CEO of Urban Watch to try to resolve this matter, but every time they're promising. Even now, I think they told me yesterday that the department is going to pay them today. Maybe tomorrow they can pay our security officers. But I don't believe, I'm looking the clarity maybe to MEC of Education, Mr. Matume Chilwane, and his boss, Mr. Panyaza Lissufu, to influence, to try to resolve this matter as soon as possible.
The G20 nations acknowledged the vital role of energy efficiency in driving sustainable growth and meeting Paris Agreement's targets, as well as prioritizing enhanced energy productivity and increased investment in energy-efficient solutions. This will be part of the discussions of the G20 Energy Transition Working Group in Durban, South Africa this week. The South African Deputy Minister for Electricity and Energy, Samantha Graham-Murray, says in Africa there are over 500 million people who do not have access to any form of energy. Speaking at a conference on the sidelines of the working group meeting, Graham Murray says it is very concerning that a large number of women and children die because of unclean cooking methods.
You've got over 1 billion Africans who use unclean cooking facilities to make their food. Clean cooking is also one of our G20 priorities, and it's something that we are focusing strongly on, not just in South Africa, but throughout Africa. Access to energy is also something that we are focusing on. But what we're saying is that if we can create an energy efficient mindset, we don't have to create as much energy. So we're talking about saving by 2063 about 40 gigawatts of electricity that won't have to be produced if we start using energy more efficiently.
The International Monetary Fund says emerging markets have shown remarkable resilience to risk of shocks in recent years. The IMF says policy upgrades underpin emerging market resilience, and releasing its World Economic Output Chapter 2 focusing on emerging markets, the organization says improvements in policy frameworks played a critical role in bolstering the capacity of emerging markets to withstand risks of shocks. Nothando Magudulela reports.
The IMF says since the global financial crisis, emerging markets have consistently demonstrated a remarkable capacity to withstand major risk of global shocks. These include the severe economic disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent surge in global inflation. The report says while favorable external conditions have played a supporting role, a new analysis suggests that improvements in policy frameworks are yielding high returns.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,467 naira. In Botswana, 13.20. Kenya, the dollar is 128 shilling 23. Zambia, 23 kwacha 73. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 32. In Russia, 82 rubles 25. India, 88 rupees 73. China, 71.11. South Africa, 17 rand 19 cents. $1 is 74 pence to the British pound, 85 to the euro. Commodities, gold is $4,010, platinum at $1,656 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $65.95 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruko Ligenge.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Cyber experts say that the widespread adoption of digital technologies in countries like South Africa has created new avenues for gender abuse, including harassment, doxing, which refers to the act of searching for and publicly revealing someone's private and non-consensual images online. They say that this hostile digital environment silences women, activists and other marginalized groups, hindering their full participation in online spaces and even sometimes leading to offline violence. Nhlanhla Mahlangu picks up the story.
The rise in the weaponizing of technology and online platforms to attack women and girls on the basis of their gender was under the spotlight at a round-table workshop in Johannesburg. The Center for Analytics and Behavioral Change and TikTok hosted the roundtable workshop on tech-facilitated gender-based violence, TFGBV, which is an act of violence committed, assisted, aggravated, and amplified in part or fully by the use of information and communication technologies or digital media against a person on the basis of gender. Kyle Janse, senior researcher at the Center for Analytics and Behavioral Change, says tech-facilitated gender-based violence carries significant health and safety consequences for women.
These roundtables aim to deepen collective understanding and drive collaborative action on tech-facilitated gender-based violence, particularly those impacting women in the media industry. These roundtables bring together journalists, digital safety experts, civil society, regulators, and online creators to foster a multi-stakeholder approach that supports women's voices in media while building safer online communities.
South African National Editors Forum Executive Director Reggie Mwalusi says the workshop was significant, especially for female journalists.
It's quite important because female journalists are going through a lot. And as they're going through a lot in terms of harassment, intimidation, doxing online. And these are the conversations that we need to have because we continue to seek solutions to say what are the practical solutions that we can come up with to fight what's going on online, particularly directed at female journalists. There are actors behind these attacks, these accounts, but we need to define them. We need to get to the bottom of who they are, who's paying, who's behind all of this, so that in the end we come up with solutions. But we as SANEF, we say we'll always support such because there's an ongoing need for us, which is important, to focus on female journalists, young and old, so that we can equalize the playing fields, that for them they need to be treated as equal as their male counterparts.
The roundtable heard how digital spaces have also created fertile ground for technology-facilitated gender-based violence, often causing psychological, social, reputational, or even economic harm. Dudum Kize, Outreach and Partnerships Manager for Sub-Saharan Africa at TikTok, says in order to address the issue, awareness has become important.
So this event allows us to have stakeholders, including journalists themselves, to bring us insights that they have developed from the shared experience. And we are grateful for the opportunity to be able to engage and get those insights. And we are going to be taking them back to our safety teams to ensure that we can at least implement them. We are hoping that we can come back to the same group and say, due to your feedback and insights, this is what we have done to make you feel safe on our platform.
South Africa has several laws addressing sexting and cyberbullying, such as the Film and Publication Act of 1996, which regulates harmful online content, especially involving children. The Cybercrime Act of 2020 criminalizes online harassment, bullying, and related offenses, amongst others. Perpetrators may face charges including assault, defamation, or extortion, with penalties ranging from fines to imprisonment. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Gandla Mahlangu in Johannesburg.
Nkhanza zokhudza amuna ndi azimayi kapena kuti gender-based violence GBV zikuwononga mioyo komanso kuphwasula midzi. Zikuchitika m'manyumba, m'masukulu, malo ogwirira ntchito ndipo kwambiri mwakachetechete, koma sizikuyenera kupitirira. Mukazimva yankhulani, ngati mwakhuzidwa funani chithandizo, chifukwa kusachita chilichonse sikuthandiza. Mverani kuma wireless onse 14 a SABC kuchokera lachitatu pa 23 mwezi uno wa Julai kuti mumve zokambirana, malangizo, masewero, zionetsero za maphunziro ndi mafunso okhuza nkhanza za amuna ndi azimayi ndi akatswiri, anthu opulumuka ku nkhanzazi, kukhazikitsa lamulo komanso dziko lonse lokhuzidwa ndi nkhanzazi. Zonsezi pa wireless yomwe mumayikonda ya SABC. Imbirani pa nambala 0800 428 428 kuti munene za nkhanzazi kapena kupeza chithandizo. Nkhanza zokhuza amuna ndi azimayi zimatha ndi inu. Kutenga ukufikani kuchokera ku SABC.
South Africa's national under-20 men's football team, Amajita, are through to the knockout round of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Be with us this Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. as Amajita face Colombia, streaming live on SABC+. And there's more. Other Under-20 World Cup matches are streaming live on SABC+, with selected fixtures on SABC Sport Channel and SABC One. Wave the flag, Mzansi, stand up for Amajita. The FIFA Under-20 World Cup Amajita coverage is on SABC+, and it's powered by SABC Sport.
A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Our final chat for this Wednesday morning. We look at this Africa and Dubai investment ties now. So efforts to strengthen real estate investment ties between Africa and Dubai face several challenges despite growing interest from both regions. Industry experts say issues such as regulatory differences, limited access to financing, inconsistent property laws continue to slow progress. In a bid to address these challenges, Africa Property Investment, or API Events, is set to host the inaugural Africa UAE Investor Tour this November in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. To unpack what this initiative means for strengthening real estate ties between the two regions, we're joined by Murray Anderson, Commercial Director at API Events. Murray, good morning to you and thanks for making time for us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
So what inspired this idea behind the Africa UAE Investor Tour?
I think the inspiration is that a lot of capital and development that we're seeing across the markets that we serve at API Events. We've seen a lot of our clients based out of the UAE, and there's a lot more interest from the Gulf into African states. I think why we know this at API Events is we only focus on real estate and hospitality, and we operate across sub-Saharan Africa. So I think our audience is quite aware of the opportunity. So we've decided to take 30 to 40 African developers and investors to Dubai to meet them.
What will this tour, or how will this tour help to bridge the investment gaps, especially in real estate, between Africa and Dubai?
Some of the challenges for offshore markets into Africa has been that there's a lack of knowledge and transparency, and it's difficult to travel to key markets. I think where this tour is different is that we're taking the leaders from selected markets across to UAE so people can meet and have face-to-face conversations in a convenient platform. And it just helps to bring that transparency and understanding of what market is valuable, what are the needs, is this capital, is it project finance, all these types of different elements that are required to get large-scale projects completed in Africa.
Will Dubai and Abu Dhabi share similarities in terms of their markets, and especially when it comes to how Africa should approach these real estate investments?
I mean, I think there are some similarities. Obviously, there was some very, very big differences. I think what the main thing is there's a lot of capital sitting in these markets, and there's capital that needs to work. I think there are some best practices that we can see that we want to showcase and to inspire the market. So a lot of the tour is to visit big developers, project professionals, because a lot of them are working in different markets. I think there's a lot of knowledge exchange that will happen, and to inspire the next generation of developers from Africa.
So which are some of the African countries that are top of the list now when it comes to who the UAE is looking at investing with?
I think UAE, there's a lot of sovereign wealth funds, there's family offices, there's large corporates that are back. I think the markets that are attractive, I mean, South Africa remains attractive from a real estate, smaller markets such as Mauritius, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Morocco, your sort of high-ranking African markets from a real estate perspective. But then obviously there's the secondary markets as well. So I think every market is different, and I think that's where API Events comes into play, because we're bringing delegates from about 10 countries on this tour. So I think that's the exciting thing for the market.
Murray, thanks so much again for your time and all the best in putting this tour together.
Thank you so much.
Murray Anderson is Commercial Director at API Events. They are hosting the Africa UAE Investor Tour. It's going to be this November of 2025. And that's our show as far as interviews are concerned, but we're still here in studio because Benjamin is joining us to tell us what to expect with the show that's coming up next on Channel Africa, which is On the Move. Good morning, sir.
Hey, guys. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Fantastic. We're going to have a serious conversation today on the Move. One that sticks out for me today and very different to what we've done before. We don't speak enough about illness when it comes to couples, right? When an illness enters a relationship, it doesn't only affect the person who's ill, but also when you are the person who's very ill, you feel guilty, you feel like there's this shift in your life, and there's also pressure to get well. But also your partner is also going to feel a lot of that responsibility to take care of you, and then can kind of strain the dynamics of the relationship in itself if you guys don't have a strong foundation. But even if you do, I think sometimes we use that as
it's
if
really
you don't have a
hard,
strong foundation. But I think it's very much a big challenge when an illness, especially a chronic one, enters a relationship.
And then children exacerbate it if they are in the mix.
Fascinating. I saw a documentary, I think it was last week actually, on this very issue in the UK, and they said, sadly, when one of the partners has an illness, maybe a terminal one, often it's the man that leaves the relationship more than the women for some reason. I'm not sure why that is.
Is it because we're not good caregivers? Maybe caregiving is not something we find as a comfort.
That would be interesting to delve deeper into.
It is hard
in terms of that study.
It is, especially as you say when the kids are, because now one of the partners has to do everything and look after another child, which is now the sick partner. It is hard. It is hard. Shame, man.
I think it would be interesting also in the cases where the partner does leave. And unfortunately then the one who was ill doesn't make it, passes away. How the family of the deceased partner looks now at this one who left and how they would navigate the relationship moving forward.
And also, do you blame
the move after the 9 o'clock news?
Do you blame the person who's also left? Because sometimes we stereotype those people. Maybe they can't handle that burden. Maybe they're not that type of person to do so. Well, that's coming up.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, hey?
It's 9 o'clock. I'm Peter Ndoro saying goodbye.
Beda, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow 6 till 9. Let's hand you over to Onel Nzinzi now for our news update.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Looking at your top stories, Boko Haram reportedly makes a comeback in Nigeria's Lake Chad region, and support for President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown arrives in Chicago. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. According to research by Dr. Sahid Babajide Owonikoko,